Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt inside the ReliefFactor.com studio inside of the Beltway, where last night was peaceful indeed as I survey the morning news for an hour before the show. It's the first time in many weeks where I thought, well, things are kind of normal. There were big demonstrations yesterday. I watched them like you did. And in fact, I watched a lot of them. I got one of those great asthma attacks, which happens in Northern Virginia when you run 6 miles in pollen, which I did after the show yesterday, and then by the end of it, I'm looking for the what do you call that little red thing that you breathe, the inhaler, and so it just knocked me right on my back, and so I just watched, flip channels, watched the demonstrations, big demonstrations, great to have demonstrations in America. As I said to a caller yesterday, I was at the March for Your Lives demonstration. I supported the pink hat demonstration. I think demonstrations are great. It's the essence of the First Amendment, the right to assembly, the right to speech. They're great. The violence, I don't even know if there was violence last night. I read all the major papers this morning. This is the Wall Street Journal's account. Mass demonstrations across the United States gave way to a night of relative calm Tuesday, in contrast to the destruction of recent nights. And so when you do what I do and you begin with the Times of Israel, go to the Financial Times, the Telegraph, then the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, by that point you've spotted if there's been any major breaking local story, and thus far not. There have been some awful stories from the previous days. The murder of the retired police captain in St. Louis as he defended his store, African-American man, that just has traumatized St. Louis. There's been a lot of random violence, but I think President Trump and Bill Barr, backed up by National Guardsmen, have sent a message, and the message was received yesterday. So big demonstrations, fine. Violence, not fine. And I wouldn't be surprised if we are even unaware of Antifa. And Antifa is not that big. As Detective Tom said yesterday, maybe 100 in the Bay Area, that they figured it out, that we've got their number. And by we, I mean people who abhor violence, not people who abhor demonstrations. I don't actually know anyone who abhors demonstrations. Most people appreciate it. But I'd like to know what you think. 1-800-520-1234. If you listen to the show much, you know I rarely go to the phones early, but I'm just curious whether you agree with me. The fever broke. The average American is disgusted with the violence, disgusted with people like Bill de Blasio and other big city mayors who allowed it to happen in the first place. And I also happen to believe that this unmasking of the hard left really has hurt the Democrats in November. By the way, last night Steve King got booted out of Congress. Not yet. It's just he won't be on the ballot. He's done. And that's good. He's been a man without a party for a long time, stripped by Leader McCarthy of all committee assignments. His borderline racist rhetoric, his embrace of extreme arguments, long an embarrassment for the GOP. He got booted last night. Joni Ernts will be on the show, fresh off of her primary win last night. She's a favorite for re-election in Iowa, but she's got a brand new book out called Daughter of the Heartland. She'll be here. Admiral Stav is coming along. Mike Gallagher from Wisconsin. Peter Baker of the New York Times. And Joni and Tim Alberta of Politico will be here. But I'd like to hear what you have to say. Let me tell you, I also want to check markets early today because I believe what's going to happen is a big rally today. This is brought to you, of course, by Birch Gold. Send my name, Hugh, H-U-G-H, to 474747, and Birch Gold will send you all the information you need to convert part of your IRA to gold. And I think a lot of people are buying gold. Let me check the gold spot price this morning. It's at $1,724, down from its high of $1,750. But I don't think it's going to go much lower because the inflationary impact is the lead business story of the day, is that stocks have done well yesterday. They did well on Monday. They're doing well in across the board abroad. Overnight in Japan, it's closed now. Stocks rose again, 1.33%. In Hong Kong, even with the threatened crackdown, they're up 1.4%. The markets are open and long into the day in England and Germany. 1.5%, Germany 2.35%. I don't know what's going to happen today in the United States. I never guess in the morning, never, where it will end up in the afternoon. But with the 10-year Treasury still at 0.68%, the speculation at the Financial Times. It's a great, big, giant newspaper. It's expensive to subscribe to. I don't recommend it to most people. It's very simple that global stocks and oil extend gains on economic recovery hopes. Crude rises above $40 for the first time in 3 months as investors shrug off U.S. unrest. That was from 3 hours ago. That's the headline of the day. The vast amount of fiscal stimulus. Trillions and trillions of dollars, almost 500 different national government measures to stimulate the economy post-pandemic. It's all kicking in, and inflation is right behind it. So where do you put your money? You put it in the stocks. Because you're going to get zero return on bonds or 0.4%. I think Amazon paid 0.4% 2 days ago for bonds. So gold is a good thing to do. It's always good to have in your safety deposit box. It's good to diversify your retirement account. That's the big story of the day, is that as normalcy returns, people are going to continue back with the opening. In fact, it's kind of bizarre to have these massive demonstrations and pretend that you can't reopen anywhere. So Birch Gold, HughGold.com, HughGold.com. Let's get some opinions. Mary in Tampa, Florida, home of CENTCOM. Good morning, Mary. How are you?
Okay, good morning. On Breaking the Fever, with Kurt Schlichter on Monday, Celine Zolito said basically follow the money with this protesting and mention who's behind it. Open society, civil society, George Soros.
Okay, so Mary, I really just want to know I don't do conspiracy much. I never mentioned the guy's name. I don't know if Selena and Kurt did. I don't mention any of the conspiracy stuff on the show. So thank you for your call, but that's a different program. I really don't. I don't go in for that. One world order. Nope, not what I see. I see random mass violence by criminal elements finding the opportunity paved the way by Antifa, and that there are provocateurs. I don't think they're paid by one source. I just don't. JD, Las Vegas. How are you, JD?
Doing as well as can be expected, but I'm just about fed up with everything. I can't stand these Democrat marquee senator Massachusetts calling President Trump a scum.
Well, you know why I did that, JD? He's going to lose his race to young Kennedy. And so he's trying to, well, I don't know about good. Young Kennedy could be president, but thanks for the call, JD. Let me explain. When you find someone like Markey screaming at the president, it's just because he's losing his primary campaign. And I saw that the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Elliot Abrams, not Elliot Abrams, I'm sorry. That's
Elliot Engel.
Elliot Engel. Elliot Abrams, a good guy over at State Department, very smart guy. Elliot Engel, funny story, open mic story yesterday. He elbowed his way into the microphone. He said, I wouldn't do this except I got a primary. He's going to get booted by the AOC people. One of these old, tired Democrats who've just been doing the same thing for 50 years. And, the party's lurched way to the left. It's AOC's party. And they caught him on an open mic yesterday. I got to get to the microphone. I wouldn't do this, but I got a primary. In other words, I wouldn't bother with Brooklyn, but, I'm going to lose my job. Yep, he is going to lose his job. Victor in Silver Springs, Maryland, where it was quiet last night. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, Hugh.
You got like 30 seconds, so be quick.
Okay. I really wish there was a way we could all help these black businesses that were destroyed by the looters. I heard a woman from New York City screaming at somebody, and you say Black Lives Matter. Well,
I'll tell you what, Victor, what you do is go down to H Street Northeast. Very easy to do. You're not too far from there. Go patronize one of the stores it's not a rhetorical question. Go find a store that got burned out. Give the owner $20, get a gift card, and go forward. You can find a way to help don't call a radio show. If that's your motivation, the place there was a riot in D.C. that's nearest to Silver Springs, Maryland, is H Street Northeast. Got looted. Mostly African-American businesses destroyed. Go there and help. 1-800-520-1234. What do you think? I think calm is back. I think President Trump did his job, and I think the choice is clear in November. Stay tuned.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by GivingMass.com. Go to GivingMass.com/Hugh.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Now, I have a series of questions. I just would like to know, yes, no, I don't know, as to whether or not you will be calling as a witness to the Judiciary Committee the following people. Will you be subpoenaing James Comey,
Yes.
Andrew McCabe,
Yes.
John Brennan,
Yes.
James Clapper,
Yes.
Susan Rice?
Don't know.
Have you had a chance yet to read then acting Attorney General Sally Yates' statement to the special counsel, which was included as Exhibit 4 in the motion to dismiss the Flynn case?
Not all of it. There are 53 of them. We're going through them right now.
It is shocking, and I go back to being in the Department of Justice in 83, 84, 85. It is shocking that she did not know that the FBI was going to interview General Flynn.
Clapper, right, I agree. Clapper and Yates were called about 3 years ago before my subcommittee when the whole Flynn thing got out in the public, when the Washington Post indicated Flynn was talking to the Russian ambassador. Number one, Flynn's the incoming national security advisor. He has every right to be talking to the Russian ambassador. Why are we surveilling the incoming administration by the outgoing administration? But we call Clapper and Yates before the committee. I want to recall them both and ask them about the Horowitz report. Ask them, if you knew then what you know now, would you have a different view of this whole investigation? I'm starting with Rosenstein next Wednesday. He signed the last warrant application. I want to ask him, if you knew then what you know now, if you knew.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
An angry crowd broke into the Minneapolis Police Department's 3rd Precinct headquarters Thursday night. Just stop and think about that. They broke into a police headquarters? An angry crowd, that's a mob, and that's illegal. And the police retreated, I guess, and set fire to the building. Okay, so you're endangering firemen. So the police retreated and firemen got endangered, capping another day of protests, many of them violent. The police station on East Lake Street has been the epicenter of this protest for this week, for people demanding justice after the death of George Floyd, who died Monday. Minnehaha Lake Wine and Spirits, the target of looters the night before, was set ablaze. Protests have been taking across the metro all day long, both peaceful and violent. On Wednesday night, a man was fatally shot as crowds looted and burned buildings on East Lake Street late into the night. It has spread to St. Paul, and I do know Minneapolis pretty well. I am a veteran of rolling around. The hotel in St. Paul, the St. Paul is my favorite hotel. St. Paul Cathedral is my favorite church in America. I love the Charlie Brown week. I love everything about the city. I go there often, and if it wasn't for the fact that it was in Minnesota cold, I would live there part of the year.
Perfect weekend ahead. It's going to be about 70 degrees and sunny all 3 days.
Well, that's good. It's not going to be hot.
No.
If it was hot, I would say, oh, my goodness, we're in trouble. Look, the Michael Freeman, who is Amy Klobuchar's successor, Amy punted on the bad cop charge. He did not help things yesterday.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
22 minutes after the hour, America. The land you love too. Been a tough 3 months for it. Exploding in violence. Perhaps there is an interconnection between those two. I don't know. All I know is that order has been restored. New York Times writing this morning, following President Trump's vow on Monday to dominate. They say demonstrators. It's actually, he said he's going to dominate the streets. The federal government mobilized its law enforcement agencies across the country, from border agencies and the DEA to the FBI hostage rescue team, working alongside local law enforcement, the military police, and the National Guard. And the president delivered order. Order was back because the message goes forth, and you cannot miss the message if you're one of the dopes. Which is, this went from ollie in free, break any window you want to you're going to jail overnight. Ray in Blue Ridge, Georgia. What do you think, Ray?
I agree with the president and Bill Barr. A show of unity to the peaceful protesters, a show of force to the criminal element. Absolutely agree.
And it worked.
It did work, yes, sir.
Yeah, it worked.
Go Steelers.
Oh, my gosh, you snuck that in. Ben, you let a Steelers fan through. Thank you, Ray. Eduardo, 1-800-520-1234, 1-800-520-1234, connects to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Good morning, Eduardo.
Yeah, we had a governor here, Sisolak, attack Trump for saying we'll call in the National Guard. Then we had a policeman shot in the back of the head with one of the by a protester, and he's on life support. Now all these politicians are doing a lot of hypocritical hand wringing. I mean, if the guard
wait a minute, I can't hear you because your phone is breaking up. In Las Vegas, there was a policeman shot?
Yep, in the back of the head by a protester.
Okay, I haven't seen that. I'm going to go check it out. Thank you. Yep, there it is, 6 hours ago. I hadn't seen this in Las Vegas. Las Vegas police officer in grave condition after being shot in the head. Suspect arrested. This is from Fox News. A Las Vegas police officer was reportedly shot in the head on the Strip overnight. A 20-year-old suspect was taken into custody, charged with attempted murder. He's on lifeless support after Edgar Samanagio allegedly fired from across the street on Las Vegas boulevards while the officers were attempting to disperse a group of protesters near the Circus Casino. That is tragic. I had not seen that. That's why I love having my audience. Mike Gallagher's fund, Fallen in Heroes Fund, will help this family out, I'm sure. Go to Mike online. I'm sure he will be talking about this. The shooting happened just before midnight on Monday. Okay, so it did not happen last night. Okay, that's why I hadn't seen it happen on Monday night. But the story's only 6 hours. That's why we're still catching up on the mayhem of Monday and Sunday and Saturday. Oh, this is terrible. Just absolutely terrible. I don't know that this is just a criminal who decided to shoot. It's hard to say, but it's a very bad story. Keep that in mind as we listen to Loretta Lynch, cut number one on CNN yesterday, former Attorney General under Barack Obama. Cut number one.
Well, I'm not sure what went into the decisions there, but I think if the president is going to leave the White House and walk into the area where people are trying to express themselves, it is a missed opportunity not to listen to them. You don't have to agree. You don't have to accept what they're saying. People are saying loud and clear, we want to be heard. We want our government to respond to us, not walk past us and take a picture. So I think it was a tremendous missed opportunity. Again, I don't know what went into that decision. I don't think it was helpful at all.
I mean, I understand, and we don't know exactly what went into it, but do you think that if the White House sent a message that the peaceful protests needed to be cleared from that area so the president could walk across, should the Attorney General have done something?
Loretta Lynn, that's her opinion. What a dumb opinion, though. You don't talk to a mob. You don't talk to a mob. The officer is Shay K. Michelonis. That who's been wounded in very critical condition, Officer Shay Michelonis, and I'm sure Mike Gallagher will be sending a check down to that family right away, as Mike always does. The suspect had 2 Glock pistols, a Glock carbine conversion kit. That story hadn't come to my attention. That's terrible. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Study also says the vast majority, between 90 and 95% of the civilians shot by officers, were actively attacking the police or other citizens when they were shot. The vast majority, between 90 and 95. I'm reading this again for the young lady that says that I was defending the officers that were involved in the killing of George Floyd. So since she has difficulty grasping me when I speak, I just want to do it 2 times for you, just for you. The vast majority, between 90 and 95, of civilians shot by officers were actively attacking police or other citizens when they were shot. 90% also were armed with a weapon when they were shot. The horrific cases of accidental shootings, like mistaking a cell phone for a gun, are rare, said the co-author of the study. Quote, this is him again. We hear about the really horrendous and tragic cases of police shootings for a reason. They're awful cases. They have major implications for police-community relations, and so they should get attention. But this ends up skewing perceptions about police shootings and leads people to believe that all fatal shootings are similar to the ones we hear about, and that's just not the case. End of quote. Now, in one recent year, I think there were about 300 Americans injured by lightning. And you look at the number of unarmed blacks who were killed by the police. Frankly, as a black man, you are more likely to be injured by lightning than to be an unarmed black man killed by the police. That is how rare it is. And frankly, I don't know anybody that's been hit by lightning. Do you?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
During the campaign 2016, lock her up was a very popular chant at his various rallies. And during the debate, Hillary says, it's a good thing you're not president. And he responded. That was very, very clever, witty response. Yeah, because you'd be in jail. Everybody cracks up. Well, the president took office. Did he prosecute her? Did they file charges against her? No. But now people are upset because Bill Barr doesn't expect there to be charges against Biden and Obama. Can you imagine what would happen if the Trump administration charged them? And by the way, when Trump leaves office, after he finishes his second term, you can expect that the next Democratic president is going to figure out a way of charging Donald Trump with various crimes.
I have a general idea of how Mr. Durham's investigation is going. And as I have indicated, some aspects of the matter are being examined as potential crimes. But we have to bear in mind what the Supreme Court recently reminded us of in the Bridgegate case. As the court said there's a difference between an abuse of power and a federal crime. Not every abuse of power, no matter how outrageous, is necessarily a federal crime. Now, as to President Obama and Vice President Biden, whatever their level of involvement, based on the information I have today, I don't expect.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
This is clearly the World Health Organization's position that healthy people don't need to wear a mask. And Christine Francis, who's also with the World Health Organization, which is the clip that I saw last night on social media, she again assures people that if you're healthy and you're not exhibiting symptoms and you're not taking care of COVID-19 sick patients, or you're not a healthcare worker, you don't need to wear a mask. And here's cut 10. This is Christine Francis again from another expert from the World Health Organization.
Medical masks like this one cannot protect against the new coronavirus when used alone. When you wear them, you must combine with hand hygiene and other preventive measures. WHO only recommends the use of masks in specific cases. If you have cough, fever, and difficulty breathing, you should wear a mask and seek medical care. If you do not have these symptoms, you do not have to wear masks because there is no evidence that they protect people who are not sick. However,
All right, I give up.
if you are healthy,
I'm done. No mas. Wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. Okay, whatever. Like I said, Disney World might want to consult with the World Health Organization. Saying. But I'm no longer going to try to impose my will on any of this crap on you.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined now by Admiral James Stavridis, retired United States Navy. The four-star admiral has served in a lot of different jobs, including commander of U.S. Southern Command, Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, and commander of your attention whenever he shows up here. Good morning, Admiral. How are you? Still in Florida?
I am down here, Hugh, and looks like another beautiful day. Might get out to the beach when I'm done with a lot of phone calls and Zoom meetings.
Well, Admiral, did things settle down in Florida as they appear to have? By settle down, I mean protests are fine. There have been some big ones across the United States. There were in Washington yesterday. But I believe the violence has subsided. Is that your impression?
That is my impression, and that's enormous good news for the country. The last thing in the world we need on top of the COVID is a series of violent protests, looting, breakdowns of law and order. I understand the reason for the protests, and I am supportive of people pressing on the policing system in the country. We've got to get that right. We can never see another video like we saw coming out of Minneapolis and the death of George Floyd. But we have to maintain order in the country. I think we can do that effectively. But Hugh, here's the point. We're right in the middle of this COVID situation. We can't take our eye off that ball.
Admiral, I want to talk to you about command environment. Yesterday I had on Senator Martha McSally, Colonel, retired from the United States Air Force, and she entered into a couple of command environments where there was just out-of-control sexual harassment. She details it in her new book, Dare to Fly. I'm going to talk with Joni Ernts, another National Guard veteran. But both of them have said in their book, everything depends upon the people at the top. When you see a police department with rogue officers, do you immediately think there is a problem in the command environment somewhere?
Absolutely. And let's face it, when you walk aboard a ship, let me put this in a nautical context. When you walk aboard a ship and you walk around for 30 minutes, you can get an immediate feeling of command environment. And it's from kind of big things like how you're greeted, how the quarterdeck looks, to the small things like is there dirt in the corners of the mess decks? It's the little things. We saw that as changes in policing really turned around safety in New York City. And first of all, a fish rots from the head. You got to worry about the top of the leadership in that situation. And then secondly, there's a peer pressure aspect to this as peers look across the organization, and if they see slackness or not following the rules, you're going to see a gradual degradation of the environment. So the answer to the question is yes.
So I want to stick on that for just a moment because I think this is actually directed to every police chief in the United States. And there are thousands of them because the police power resides with the states. People don't understand the federal government does not have a general police power. The police power resides with the states. It is delegated in turn to local governments, county and sheriffs. And excuse me, Admiral, you know the Beltway is not good to people with asthma and allergies. Anyway, the state and local police authorities have this power. How does a commander establish that the use of force is always proportionate, never lethal, unless your life is in danger, because that's what LA had to get to after the LA riots. I covered it for 10 years, every night on Life and Times. Every night we covered police power issues. And the reform process wasn't easy out there. It took 3 police chiefs, maybe 4, to get to where we wanted to get in Los Angeles. It's not easy to establish.
It's not. And let's just do the numbers for a second. There's somewhere between 800,000 and 1 million law enforcement officers in the United States when you count reservists, auxiliaries, and active duty out there. So that's really the size of the U.S. Department of Defense. But here's the problem. You just pointed it out. It's broken down into 50 states, 3,000 counties, and tens of thousands of municipalities, each one of which, just look at the uniforms of them. Each one of them, I hate to use the word uniform because there's nothing uniform about it. And look at how some police chiefs wear like 5 stars on their collar. They might have 100 people working for them, but they're like a 5-star admiral. And some police chiefs have more modest. It's just all these different organizations have different cultures, different histories. They've gone through different situations. So the real challenge when we say we want to create a policing culture in the nation that is everything you just said it needed to be. The problem is it's broken down into all of these individual elements. And the reason for that is the founding fathers did not want, justifiably, I believe, a huge national police force. They didn't even want a big standing army, by the way. The Congress has the power to raise an army and maintain a navy. So what can we do about it? We can take what we've learned, I think, in the Department of Defense and apply it, which are the things we just talked about, focus on culture, get the right leaders in place. You mentioned it. Sometimes you got to go through a number of leaders to get to the one you actually need. We've got to resource it properly. And here I mean the training, the time to get these officers off the front lines, get them the training they need, certify them. And lastly, you've got to ruthlessly weed out the bad apples early on. And I think, to close, I think we're going to find out that the particular police officer who sat with his knees on the neck of George Floyd in public view with brother officers around him, we're going to find that was not the first time he started violating norms and rules. He should have been thrown out much sooner. That's got to be part of it as well.
Well, we agree on everything. I don't know if we're going to agree on this. Yesterday, Mayor Bill de Blasio gave a statement that I think is going to rank as one of the most irresponsible and dumb things I've heard an elected leader say. He said, look, we're not going to have the National Guard in or military people, even though, New York had been overwhelmed on successive nights for 4 nights, because they don't know how to do the job that the New York police are trained. They don't know our city. The last thing you need, history shows, and he proceeded to misstate history. History shows that violence always follows when the military is involved. That actually is not true. It's the exact opposite in L.A. in 1992, the one example with which I'm very familiar because I was covering that from the streets. What do you think? Do you think the military, when used under the Insurrection Act, is trained appropriately to secure large spaces? They don't actually do the policing. They provide force enlargement positions. What's your thought about that?
Again, let's do the numbers here. As I said, there's 800,000 to 1 million law enforcement officers, civilians. There are 500,000 National Guard troops. The National Guard is the correct answer here. Those forces are, we say in the military, Hugh, you know this expression, they're chopped. That means we take their authorities out of the national system and we place them under the governor of the state. That's an appropriate use of military force, and these are military members who wear military uniforms who are trained within the military, but they're specifically trained for these kind of missions. I think that is a correct solution when local law enforcement loses control of a situation. And I think we have sufficient forces in those 1 million law enforcement officers and those 500,000 National Guard personnel to handle any foreseeable situation I can see arising. So I don't see the need to dip into active duty troops to bring them in under the Insurrection Act. I'm a much bigger fan of Posse Comitatus, which was passed around the same time in the 19th century, which is what precludes active duty military from conducting law enforcement operations. So let's use the National Guard. Let's use it smart. They're local. They're connected to the local communities They ought to be under the authority of the governor. That's the way we ought to approach this.
Yeah, that's what struck me about de Blasio. I think the federal troops are necessary in places like Little Rock. They're necessary maybe in Washington, D.C., where the overwhelming security concerns are for continuity of government. But for Bill de Blasio to say the National Guard can't come here because they're not trained, in fact, they are trained. I just thought it was the dumbest. They're very, very good at what they do. And people say Kent State, which was an unfortunate, terrible tragedy 50 years ago, but has the Guard changed in 50 years, Admiral Stavridis?
Oh, my gosh. And much better trained, much better equipped. And don't forget, that was part of a draft system, a conscription system. Let's face it, you and I don't have to criticize Mayor de Blasio on that statement. He was criticized by his fellow Democrat and the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who said, if I need to, I will bring in troops. He was talking about Guard troops. And I hope the New York Police Department, which has a very proud history, and by the way, has 50,000 people in it. I mean, this is a big entity. It's like one of the largest armies in the world. They can do this. But if we need to bring in the National Guard to help them, then we should do that. Absolutely.
Last question. John Podhoretz yesterday thought it was afraid that the Upper West Side and the Upper East Side were going to burn because it was Brooklyn, followed by Wall Street, followed by Midtown. It looked like demonstrators, but it stopped last night, I think, because of the president's statement, the clear communication of that, and Andrew Cuomo's statement that this was not going to be tolerated anymore. In terms of what the National Guard do, under whose command are they when they deploy, for example, in Los Angeles in the aftermath of the 92 riots or during the 92 riots? They were out during the worst of it. Under whose command are they, Admiral?
They would be under the governors of the state. They're chopped again from the national authority to the governors of the state. That's a very sensible and well-trodden path. The only time I can think of where federal troops were brought in was during race relations in segregation to enforce integration in schools because the local troops and the local governments were not going to take that on. And I'm glad they went in when they did. So there might be some other use for them. But again, the model here is use the National Guard, keep it under the governors. That's the way we're going to maintain order, and that's how we're going to have peaceful protests, and we need those peaceful protests. They are the center of gravity of what's happening right now. The overwhelming majority of those protesters are peaceful, frankly, our police officers and our National Guard ought to be protecting them while they conduct peaceful protests. That's the path out of the situation we're in now, Hugh. 1 minute, Admiral. Do you think our adversaries are taking advantage of this? Certainly the CCP has been flooding our social media with propaganda to try and equate the Hong Kong demonstrators and the violence in the United States. Absolutely. And I would put China and Russia at the top of the list using a wide variety of social media, subtly, cleverly. We have to suss that out. And we have to call it out, and we have to rise above this moment. And we can do this. We've been here before. We will come together as a nation. We need to do that. Admiral James Stavridis, retired United States Navy. Thank you, Admiral. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Hey, America, don't forget, it is a time of the day where I take my relief factor. I told you yesterday I did do my 6 after the show, but my gosh, the pollen count. That's what's going to end the demonstration in Washington, D.C., is that you can't breathe here. I am with a dose of lukewarm coffee, taking my carrying curcumin, resveratrol, and omega, as I do every day at this time. And pollen or not, I'll be out again. And I will tell you that Relief Factor is exactly what you need to get away from any inhibitions you have about resuming your exercise. Some of you have been sitting on a couch for 3 months watching Seinfeld reruns. Well, that would be me. But I've been mixing it as well. Did the math yesterday. 400 miles during the quarantine. Just add it up, 400 miles during the quarantine. I haven't done that in decades. Why? Well, when you're not doing anything, you're not running off to lunch, you're not, you can Zoom so much and then your eyes roll back in your head. ReliefFactor.com gets you out there and exercising again. Go out and use it. 4 pills, easy to swallow, easy to open, effective in the extreme. Give it a try. Join the tens of thousands of people who use ReliefFactor.com every day. And come right back here for the next segment of the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
If you do not have any respiratory symptoms such as fever, cough, or runny nose, you do not need to wear a medical mask like this one. Mask alone can give you a false feeling of protection and can even be a source of infection when not used correctly. Masks should only be used by healthcare workers, caretakers, or by people who are sick with symptoms of fever and cough. Why?
Okay,
because
I give
healthcare
up.
workers and
I
caretakers.
throw in the towel, and I am sorry to Aaron, who texted me yesterday, and I called him out a little bit on air when he said, Mike, where's the science to the masks? And I said, what do you mean, where's the science? That's what they tell us. Well, now they're telling us, evidently, a mask is unnecessary, which is going to come as a real shock to, Disney World, Governor Cuomo, all the stores and businesses requiring masks. This will be a real newsflash to Governor Northam in Virginia. I give up. I come to work prepared. I'm studying. I am trying to be sure to present the correct information to you. I feel an enormous responsibility to get it right. But I should have learned my lesson yesterday when so many smart listeners were pushing back and pointing out that there is an absurd inconsistency from our health officials about just about everything having to do with coronavirus.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
You better be damn sure that we're going to get through this.
No, with you leading it, you complete pathetic excuse of a man. If you didn't see the video, he doesn't even have the respect to put on a suit and tie. He's standing there in his skinny pants with his hair full of product, with his shirt sleeves rolled up, with his neck unbuttoned. That's the mayor of Minneapolis talking about what responsibility is, what it truly is, taking responsibility. I'll tell you what taking responsibility isn't. You deciding to withdraw your police from their police station so that it is looted by those rioters. I don't know about anybody else, but I think that police stations have guns in them and ammunition. What happened to that police station when you ordered it to be vacated and it was destroyed? Minneapolis is burning. Why 170 stores have been razed to the ground and more than $1 billion worth of damage is done, and why they had to call a curfew for 8 p.m. this evening.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt, the President of the United States, has tweeted. Undercover Huber, which, by the way, is a very, very great Twitter feed. Undercover Huber is a great spoof, funny, but at the same time sad. Because the real John W. Huber did absolutely nothing in caps. He was a garbage disposal unit for important documents and then tap, 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 just drag it along and run out of time. AG Sessions was played like a drum. Then the president tweeted 3 minutes ago, get tough police. That's what I believe happened, and that's what I believe why. I think the president restored order. I think that message in the Rose Garden worked. I think it was heard far and wide and clear, and that demonstrators figured it out. And there were big demonstrations in Washington, D.C., not as big as some of the biggest ones, not like the March for Life, not like the Civil Rights March or the mobilization. But there's a big demonstration yesterday. D.C.'s used to them. They know how to handle them. When the bad guys go home, the demonstrations are great. And I don't believe any problem happened. But Tim Scott, senator from South Carolina, hit the bullseye with this cut number 5.
Well, if you look at New York as a classic example of what happened, the law enforcement was under siege. You cannot have that situation happen anywhere in this country. As mad as we should be, as angry as we can be at those 4 officers in Minneapolis, we have to respect law enforcement around this nation. It's part of why we are the greatest country on earth, is because we have order. Law and justice actually matters. And so the president's objective of having more conversation around economic opportunity and being able to live in a just society, those conversations are now being pushed to the back because we first have to have order in our states, order in our cities. And I'm going to implore the governors and the mayors, do the job that you were hired and elected to do, because that is how we get to the underlying issues. You cannot have that conversation until you first establish order in your streets, in your communities. It is not doing the African American community any service by having that kind of violence anywhere. So if you want to have a conversation about race and justice, if you want to have a conversation about progress, first get order in your streets so that we can then sit down and have a conversation as one American family. We can still get there, but it's going to take the efforts of African American leaders, law enforcement leaders coming together with the president and saying enough is enough. We will not lose another life, whether that's a blue uniform or a black face. We don't want death in our country. We're going to stand together because that is what we do as Americans.
Good for Tim Scott. Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, is the one. You heard Admiral Stavridis refer to this. He blasted de Blasio yesterday for doing exactly the opposite. Cut number 7.
And he can do it with the NYPD. First, the NYPD and the mayor did not do their job last night. I believe that. Second, you have 38,000 NYPD people. It is the largest police department in the United States of America. Use 38,000 people and protect property. Use the police, protect property and people. Look at the videos. It was a disgrace.
Right there. Meanwhile, Dermont Shea, the New York Police Department commissioner, went on with Neil Cavuto and said this about Cuomo. Cut number 11.
Well, I just heard a story about somebody saw a protester, a looter arrested. The reality of the situation is that looter will probably be back in 3 hours and we'll have to catch him again. Any comments that are placing the blame for where we are with this situation on the backs of the men and women of this police department that are putting their lives on the line, Neil, I think is disgraceful, and he should be ashamed of himself.
So the governor said the mayor should be ashamed of himself. The police commissioner said the governor should be ashamed of himself. They're all Democrats, by the way. Here's more Dermont Shea talking about Cuomo not being helpful. Cut number 12.
Neil, I don't think this is productive. I really don't. When you look at the, there's politics at play here, obviously. What everyone should be concentrating on here is how do we get out of this situation? There's marches across New York City going on right now, and they are peaceful. But I think that that when you look at what's transpired across the country, we have been very fortunate in some ways here in New York City. We've had officers injured,
right there.
and it's
Stop
terrible.
right there. It's not reality. It's a Democrat-controlled city and a Democrat-controlled state saying we've been fortunate here in New York. Seriously, take away from this episode, even as it calms down, Trump broke the back of this with that statement in the Rose Garden. The word went forth. And when he says police get tough, the word goes forth. Law enforcement, do your job, which they did do across the United States in large numbers, and they are great at doing it. And Detective Tom was out there on the front line in Oakland. Just do your jobs. Everyone will back you up. Not Bill de Blasio, not Andrew Cuomo, not Nancy Pelosi, not Chuck Schumer. Certainly not Joe Biden, who wants to create a commission. That's great. Create a commission. Just make sure that order is maintained. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Jim, California, line 1.
Thank you. Gorka, how are you?
I am agitated, but welcome.
You know, LeBron James did a great job of This Is Why. I mean, that's Madison Avenue, top-notch stuff. Imagine if the photos were inverted, though. Kaepernick kneeling, doing his take-a-knee thing is why we're doing it now in front of everybody to put them in their place, and this is from the Pentagon on down. Now,
You're kind of losing me here. Why are you calling up today, Jim, to talk about Kaepernick?
Well, because you won't let me talk about LennonMurderTruth.com.
Oh, why did you leave this guy? Don't let Jim. Why are you lying about your name? You ring up every flipping radio show in the nation. You change your name and you lie. You're a tinfoil hat. You're a hero. You're a hero. When people say that they're a hero, they're a coward and a failure and a loser. If you have to call yourself a hero, you are the biggest loser in human history. Do you understand how pathetic I'm? The website is your proof, right?
Is my proof,
dude. Go back to the little aliens. The aliens are coming for you now. Quickly, put on the tinfoil hat. Run, Jim! Run! The tinfoil hat is waiting for you. Now! They're coming! The Yeti, the Sasquatch, they're all coming for you. Jim, you're a lunatic.
Just like the media?
No. Bye-bye. We did some research on this guy. He rings up every national radio show with the story. Hang on a second. We got 30 seconds. What's the story? Who killed John Lennon? What is it, Jeff? Is it
Reagan did.
Ronald Reagan killed John Lennon. Looney, get some psychiatric help. Thank you, whatever your name is.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
But to the extent that I represent literally thousands of physicians around the country, and their voices are not being heard, a rational voice, a different voice than the mainstream narrative, then I'm happy to do so.
What is your message?
My message is really this. I think we've overreacted in a big way. We are harming people like we've never seen happen before with the shutdown of the economy. You know, I wrote a piece recently that was published in the American Thinker, and I was channeling you as I wrote it. I titled it Better Safe Than Sorry. And what I point out is that we're at depression levels of unemployment right now. We're seeing domestic violence at the highest levels we've ever seen. Our local sheriff here in Orange County, Sheriff Don Barnes, reports that our 911 systems are being overwhelmed by domestic violence calls. And remember, one domestic violence case is lifelong. That person will be affected for many, many years to come. The World Health Organization has estimated that we're going to see up to 30 million children die as a result of poverty. Make that the World Vision Organization, published in the LA Times recently. We are literally letting criminals out of jail, yet preventing Americans from defending themselves by buying guns, at least in California, because gun stores are all closed.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I am reading to you an interview with the former head of the Israeli Health Ministry. He's an MD. He's a liberal, member of the Labor Party in Israel. Okay? So he's talking, he said this is the mother of all hysterias, which is my position, as you know. The draconian measures are of biblical proportions. God, is he right? Hundreds of millions of people are suffering. In developing countries, many will die from starvation. In developed countries, many will die from unemployment. Unemployment is mortality.
There are dead people thanks to Gavin Newsom. There are ruined lives. There are increased alcoholism thanks to Gavin Newsom and Eric Garcetti. They have so many victims on their hands, but they have blunt left-wing consciences. If it's good for the Democratic Party, it's good. That's how communists thought. There is no difference. Good is what is good for the party. It has become an evil.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Now, I have a series of questions. I just would like to know, yes, no, I don't know, as to whether or not you will be calling as a witness to the Judiciary Committee the following people. Will you be subpoenaing James Comey?
Yes.
Andrew McCabe?
Yes.
John Brennan?
Yes.
James Clapper?
Yes.
Susan Rice?
Don't know.
Have you had a chance yet to read then acting Attorney General Sally Yates' statement to the special counsel, which was included as Exhibit 4 in the motion to dismiss the Flynn case?
Not all of it. There are 53 of them. We're going through them right now.
It is shocking, and I go back to being in the Department of Justice in 83, 84, 85. It is shocking that she did not know that the FBI was going to interview General Flynn.
Clapper, right, I agree. Clapper and Yates were called about 3 years ago before my subcommittee when the whole Flynn thing got out in the public, when the Washington Post indicated Flynn was talking to the Russian ambassador. Number one, Flynn's the incoming national security advisor. He has every right to be talking to the Russian ambassador. Why are we surveilling the incoming administration by the outgoing administration? But we call Clapper and Yates before the committee. I want to recall them both and ask them about the Harlot's report. Ask them, if you knew then what you know now, would you have a different view of this whole investigation? I'm starting with Rosenstein next Wednesday. He signed the last warrant application. I want to ask him, if you knew then what you know now, if you knew.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
An angry crowd broke into the Minneapolis Police Department's 3rd Precinct headquarters Thursday night. Just stop and think about that. They broke into a police headquarters? An angry crowd, that's a mob, and that's illegal. And the police retreated, I guess, and set fire to the building. Okay, so you're endangering firemen. So the police retreated and firemen got endangered, capping another day of protests, many of them violent. The police station on East Lake Street has been the epicenter of this protest for this week, for people demanding justice after the death of George Floyd, who...
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings and welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show on this Wednesday, June the 3rd. I am so glad to be with you. I have no idea what's happened to COVID because, of course, the demonstrations and especially the violence wiped it out. We've gone to herd immunity overnight. And I think most Americans are thinking, I guess I can go anywhere I want because the protesters sure did. I believe that is their reaction. And if you have a comment on the protest today, I think they're over. Basically, I think they're over. I think the president quelled them with his speech and his walk to St. John's. Massive show of force in Washington, D.C. Other police departments across the country took their cue. and everyone was out in force, and I believe protesting is fine, marches are fine. Don't loot or we're going to arrest you and find you. Ty in San Antonio. Good morning, Ty. You're on the Hugh Hewitt Show. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Hugh. Hey, so, there's not one statistic, if you comb through DOJ stats, CDC stats, that would indicate that cops are targeting black men, especially white cops are targeting black men. It would actually show quite the opposite, that interactions between white cops and black men are incredibly restrained. Now, the ones that go
Ty, are you in law enforcement, by the way?
I don't have to be in law enforcement.
No, it was just a question. I'm not. Okay, so the statistic you need to know is the number of police shootings in the United States, fatal shootings in 19 white men were shot fatally last year, 9 black men were, which is a disproportionate number of black men compared to their population percentage. So statistically, you're not correct when it comes to shootings by cops that are fatal. On the other hand, it's a remarkably low number. And so statistically, you're wrong when it comes to that particular category of violence that so upsets Americans. They don't like the use of deadly force. And there is a disproportionate. Now, the argument might be there's a disproportionate representation of African American males in situations like that, but you're just statistically not correct.
Hugh, let me explain something to you. The black community has allowed the Liberal Party to turn them into Americans.
Ty, you just went way off the rails. We're talking about the use of force by police. You made a statement that there's no statistical evidence of a disproportionate use. I just told you there is. Now, it's still... all right, Ty, see ya. Bye. If someone will not admit a fact, I won't talk to them because I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're in good faith. So the answer would be, okay, I understand. The best response is that's a total of 28 in the United States, fatal shootings of white and black men. There's some obviously fatal shootings of other racial groups as well. But the Washington Post tracks every single fatal encounter between police, and it's so low nationally. Our law enforcement is so well trained, so extraordinarily well trained, that the Minnesota murder of George Floyd is an aberration that shocks the conscience of everybody. But statistically, you cannot argue. I mean, it's simply, I won't put up with it because I'm a logic guy. Statistically, it is true that African-American men are disproportionately dead in encounters with cops than white men. That's just statistically true. It's also statistically true that the grand total of 28 white and black is remarkably low, given a nation of 330 million people. But given the historic, just generation-long oppression of the African-American community by cops, especially in the South, which has been endemic, slowly changed. I believe police reform has taken root all over the United States. And I got to get on my high horse here. In 1992, I went to work for PBS in Los Angeles on Life and Time, nightly news and public affairs show. I did it for 10 years until my radio show moved from the mornings where we're back. I was morning drive for 2 years in L.A. in 2000 and 2001. Then Salem asked me to take the afternoon drive, which I did. Then Bill Bennett retired, and I moved back to early morning drive on the East Coast and moved to D.C. That's my radio career. In L.A., the reason Salem found me, it's a California company, the ownership saw me every night on Life and Times, which was the PBS local affiliate talking head show. We did the news every night. And it started in February of 92, and the LA riots occurred in April of 92, at the end of April, beginning of May. Those riots defined the program for 10 years. I don't think a week, every half hour, every night, one or more of us, there were 4 co-hosts. Hugh Hewitt, Kerman Maddox, who became a very close political lieutenant of Barack Obama, and a dear friend of mine, love Kerman, Lakers fan, along with our late producer, Martin Burns. Now, Kerman's been wrong his whole life. And if you're listening out there and you see Kerman today, say, Kerman, I hear Hugh loves you, but you're wrong. It's like Mark Whitlock, who was another great friend from those days, pastor for a long time of Core Church in Irvine after he was a deputy pastor at First AME, the legendary church under Cecil Murray, who's now, I believe, at Reed Temple in Maryland. Mark Whitlock, during those days, friendships were forged covering the riots, but anyone who lived in L.A. know that Daryl Gates, the late Daryl Gates, the police department had a race problem. It was enormous. Everybody knows that the Rodney King beating was the first public showing of that, and everybody knows what happened when Rodney King was acquitted. So from April of 92 until the time I left Life and Times, 10 years later, 5 nights a week, that show was on. I often did 5 nights a week. Sometimes I did 1 night a week. It depended on whether we were running a mini doc or doing talking heads, whatever. Sometimes I hosted by myself, sometimes with Pat, sometimes with Kermit, sometimes with Pat Morrison, Ruben Martinez, the other co-host. But over and over again, for 10 years, we covered this issue of a police department's struggle to reform itself from institutionalized violence against minority communities. And it worked over time. We had Willie Williams. We finally went and got the guy from New York, Commissioner William, I can't remember his name right now. Bradford? I can't remember. And Bratton, William Bratton, that was it. Charlie just retired. We covered the police. I know this issue backwards and forward. There is no federal role here. The police are controlled by the local political officials, whether it's the sheriff's department in one of the 3,000 counties of the United States or the police department in one of the municipalities. It's a local issue. Oh my gosh, someone from Ann Arbor? Chase, I got to talk to Chase because we never let Wolverines on. Hello, Chase. Good morning.
Yeah, I'm ex-military, and I have a number.
Which branch were you, Chase?
U.S. Marine Corps, and I have a number of black friends and veteran friends and business partners and black veteran friends, and you can't watch this guy die without feeling up. It just fucking hurts. It hurts. But the question I have is, how did people stand there and film that and not do something? How did they not do something? In the military, we're looking at this saying, we're watching a war crime.
You mean the George Floyd murder? You're watching the George Floyd? Yeah. By the way, I agree. I have no idea. I think the public was yelling, let him go, but I also have some sympathy for the public, Chase. You don't advance upon 4 police officers surrounding a suspect.
Military guys I know, we wouldn't have. I would have. I have shown that to my children and said, you have to advance on that. This is what the Second Amendment is all about.
Chase, I disagree with you. I appreciate the call, but I disagree with you. No one in their right mind, no one, and I want this clear across the United, no one should ever advance on a police officer arresting a suspect. And if there's a police person out there listening right now who wants to confirm that for me, 1-800-520-1234. Absolutely not. Film, yes. Advance upon. No, you'll be dead. You'll be dead. And you should be dead in 99.99%. You shouldn't be dead. You should be subdued. 99.99% of the time, if you advance upon a police officer making an arrest, you won't be dead. They'll just subdue you as well. But you could be. I mean, that's the dumbest thing I've heard in a long time. Chase, I respect your service, but that's just dumb. Joanne in Sarasota, Florida. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Hugh Hewitt. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. Resisting arrest proportionately is an act that, first, the act of violence after a crime, now against the
Joanne,
police.
cut to the chase because we got 1 minute. What's your point?
Okay, the police's job is to secure the area and restrain a perpetrator so that they don't run into the general public. They're supposed to protect the public so that it doesn't become a chase scene or somebody getting kidnapped or killed. When you're saying that black, but black people mostly try to.
Joanne, I'm not saying black. I'm not saying anything. I just want to know your opinion.
Interrupting me. Listen, Hugh. They resist arrest more than most people.
Joanne, no, they don't. All right, jeez, don't do that. Just come with me a statistic. They, honest to goodness, that my African American friends listening to that will say, "See, I told you." And what do I say? Yeah, you're right. You're right. That was. I don't know if you understand that, Joanne. That is just a racist comment when you say they resist arrest more than other people do. That's just a racist comment. Because it's just, there's no statistical evidence for that at all, period, zero, none. That's just none, zero. I'll be right back, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
An angry crowd broke into the Minneapolis Police Department's 3rd Precinct headquarters Thursday night. Just stop and think about that. They broke into a police headquarters? An angry crowd, that's a mob, and that's illegal. And the police retreated, I guess, and set fire to the building. Okay, so you're endangering firemen. So the police retreated and firemen got endangered, capping another day of protests, many of them violent. The police station on East Lake Street has been the epicenter of this protest for this week, for people demanding justice after the death of George Floyd, who died Monday. Minnehaha Lake Wine and Spirits, the target of looters the night before, was set ablaze. Protests have been taking across the metro all day long, both peaceful and violent. On Wednesday night, a man was fatally shot as crowds looted and burned.
Attitude cuts. Cut 16 is McConnell from the Senate floor talking about George Floyd and the violence.
And I do know Minneapolis pretty well.
Then he shifted gears and talked about procedural stuff.
I am a veteran of rolling around. The hotel in St. Paul, the St. Paul is my favorite hotel. St. Paul Cathedral is my favorite church in America. I love the Charlie Brown week. I love everything about the city. I go there often, and if it wasn't for the fact that it was in Minnesota cold, I would live there part of the year.
Perfect weekend ahead. It's going to be about 70 degrees and sunny all 3 days.
Well, that's good. It's not going to be hot.
No.
If it was hot, I would say, oh, my goodness, we're in trouble. Look, the Michael Freeman, who was Amy Klobuchar's successor, Amy punted on the bad cop charge. He did not help things yesterday.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Study also says the vast majority, between 90 and 95% of the civilians shot by officers, were actively attacking the police or other citizens when they were shot. The vast majority, between 90 and 95, I'm reading this again for the young lady that says that I was defending the officers that were involved in the killing of George Floyd. So since she has difficulty grasping me when I speak, I just want to do it 2 times for you, just for you. The vast majority, between 90 and 95, of civilians shot by officers were actively attacking police or other citizens when they were shot. 90% also were armed with a weapon when they were shot. The horrific cases of accidental shootings, like mistaking a cell phone for a gun, are rare, said the co-author of the study. Quote, this is him again. We hear about the really horrendous and tragic cases of police shootings for a reason. They're awful cases. They have major implications for police-community relations, and so they should get attention. But this ends up skewing perceptions about police shootings and leads people to believe that all fatal shootings are similar to the ones we hear about, and that's just not the case. End of quote. Now, in one recent year, I think there were about 300 Americans injured by lightning. And you look at the number of unarmed blacks who were killed by the police. Frankly, as a black man, you are more likely to be injured by lightning than to be an unarmed black man killed by the police. That is how rare it is. And frankly, I don't know anybody that's been hit by lightning. Do you?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Welcome back, America. You poor people in North Carolina who are looking for an economic boom this summer from the Republican National Committee. Your governor is going to punt. The mayor of Charlotte and the governor of North Carolina, both Democrats, are going to cost the Tar Heel State the convention. RNC, Republican National Committee official, quote, due to the directive from the governor that our convention cannot go on as planned as required by our rules, the celebration of the president's acceptance of the Republican nomination will be held in another city. Should the governor allow more than 10 people in a room, we still hope to conduct the official business of the convention in Charlotte. That's just final. We're not going to Charlotte. Generalissimo and I have done everything. I don't know where we're going. I think we're going to end up in Florida because Ron DeSantis wants the business.
I saw talk of Nashville, too, as a possibility.
Yeah, Nashville's possible. But, boy, what a dope, the Democratic governor in North Carolina. He just cost all of those people in Charlotte. You don't know how much money gets spent at a convention. You have no idea how much money gets spent at a convention. I've done this since 2000. And the dope governor of a Democratic governor of North Carolina and the doped mayor, the dummy in Charlotte, they just cost their merchants millions and millions of dollars. Dave in Whittier, California is a member of law enforcement. I don't want to know the department, but Dave, my screeners tell me you're legit. Welcome. Good to hear from you.
Hey, sir. How you doing?
Good.
So I'll preface it by saying what happened to that individual in Minneapolis is absolutely disgusting. There's no police officer in this nation that would condone what happened once the cuffs were on, once he was on the ground. Who cares what happened beforehand? What happened to him shouldn't have happened to him.
Thank you.
Partners, okay, I'm just going to say this, though. His partners definitely should have stepped in, not the citizens like you correctly corrected that military man that says the Second Amendment. But his partners definitely should have stepped in and said, hey, dude, get off or do this or do that. To the other question, you can do your own research. Watch the 20 years of episodes of Cops, which is really, you could say, is a documentary of police, as well as Live, this new TV show, Live Cops or whatever it is. There is, for whatever the reason, there is a different reaction to police contact from the white community to the black community. Maybe the black community feels that they're stopped more often than the white community. That would be legitimate. But there's the violent reaction or reaction to the officer stop. Something happens where in the white community, it's more of a succumb, okay, I screwed up, what did I do, officer, I'm sorry, this and that, versus a little bit more of a reaction to say, why did you stop me, why are we doing this, and it escalates quickly. And you see it on all the YouTubes, you see it on these police shows, you see it on all these real documentary shows, not these drama shows. Something in the community, in the African-American community, there's a certain element who just do not like to be stopped by the police, and it escalates into violence. And that's what we have to address. All I could say is this. When you're stopped by the police, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, no matter how annoying it is, and then you take it to the next level. If you don't like how you were treated, take it to the watch commander. And if you don't like how it was treated, you take it to court. But arguing and fighting in the street is only going to result in some officers who aren't trained properly reacting the way they did.
Dave, I got to tell you a quick story. When I was doing the debates in 2016, I was pulled over for speeding from Stanford to the debates in the Ronald Reagan Library. And Chipper said to me, are you going to hurry? And I was in a hurry. And he said, and I pulled the debate card. I said, well, I got to go down for debate prep. I'm doing the debate. And he went back to his car. He checked out, came back, found out I was who I said I was. I was going to the debate. And he said, fine, I'll let you go. But will you please tell Jake Tapper to ask people about, ask those would-be presidents how they're going to address the problem of citizen non-compliance with stops. I got fronted last night. I gather that means someone getting in your face. And he had to have his, and he said it's spiraling out of control. Has that gotten even worse since 2016?
Absolutely. You would think that, although I don't really agree with them, these shows, that ABC show or whatever it's on now, the Lifetime show, I think people pander. It's gotten worse, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse.
Officer, thank you. Thanks for being out there every night. A lot of policemen listen to the Hugh Hewitt Show, and I am glad to have their opinions. Like Dave, look, you don't get in trouble with the cops, whether you're pulled over rightly or wrongly, if you just comply. And that's what you should do. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
During the campaign 2016, lock her up was a very popular chant at his various rallies. And during the debate, Hillary said, it's a good thing you're not president. And he responded. That was very, very clever, witty response. Yeah, because you'd be in jail. Everybody cracks up. Well, the president took office. Did he prosecute her? Did they file charges against her? No. But now people are upset because Bill Barr doesn't expect there to be charges against Biden and Obama. Can you imagine what would happen if the Trump administration charged them? And by the way, when Trump leaves office, after he finishes his second term, you can expect that the next Democratic president is going to figure out a way of charging Donald Trump with various crimes.
I have a general idea of how Mr. Durham's investigation is going. And as I have indicated, some aspects of the matter are being examined as potential crimes. But we have to bear in mind what the Supreme Court recently reminded us of in the Bridgegate case. As the court said there's a difference between an abuse of power and a federal crime. Not every abuse of power, no matter how outrageous, is necessarily a federal crime. Now, as to President Obama and Vice President Biden, whatever their level of involvement, based on the information I have today, I don't expect
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
This is clearly the World Health Organization's position that healthy people don't need to wear a mask. And Christine Francis, who's also with the World Health Organization, which is the clip that I saw last night on social media, she again assures people that if you're healthy and you're not exhibiting symptoms and you're not taking care of COVID-19 sick patients, or you're not a healthcare worker, you don't need to wear a mask. And here's cut 10. This is Christine Francis again from another expert from the World Health Organization.
Medical masks like this one cannot protect against the new coronavirus when used alone. When you wear them, you must combine with hand hygiene and other preventive measures. WHO only recommends the use of masks in specific cases. If you have cough, fever, and difficulty breathing, you should wear a mask and seek medical care. If you do not have these symptoms, you do not have to wear masks because there is no evidence that they protect people who are not sick. However,
right, I give up.
If you are healthy...
I'm done. No masks. Wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. Okay. Whatever. Like I said, Disney World might want to consult with the World Health Organization before requiring people to wear masks in order to ride Space Mountain. I'm just saying. But I'm no longer going to try to impose my will on any of this crap on you.
Keep up with what's trending. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
If you do not have any respiratory symptoms such as fever, cough, or runny nose, you do not need to wear a medical mask like this one. Mask alone can give you a false feeling of protection and can even be a source of infection when not used correctly. Masks should only be used by healthcare workers, caretakers, or by people who are sick with symptoms of fever and cough. Why?
Okay,
because healthcare workers and caretakers...
I throw in the towel, and I am sorry to Aaron who texted me yesterday, and I called him out a little bit on air when he said, Mike, where's the science to the masks? And I said, what do you mean, where's the science? That's what they tell us. Well, now they're telling us, evidently, a mask is unnecessary, which is going to come as a real shock to, Disney World, Governor Cuomo, all the stores and businesses requiring masks. This will be a real newsflash to Governor Northam in Virginia. I give up. I come to work prepared. I'm studying. I am trying to be sure to present the correct information to you. I feel an enormous responsibility to get it right. But I should have learned my lesson yesterday when so many smart listeners were pushing back and pointing out that there is an absurd inconsistency from our health officials about just about everything having to do with coronavirus.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
No, we're not. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I was so looking forward to going to Charlotte for the convention, but apparently we're not going because of the dummy governor they've got down there. I'm joined by Representative Mike Gallagher, congressman from Wisconsin. Milwaukee has a convention. Is Milwaukee still going to let the Democrats come, Mike Gallagher?
That is the plan at present. There's some debate between the mayor and the DNC over the proper security procedures, the level of testing. But as I understand it, as of yesterday, they plan to move forward.
Well, it looks like we're going to go to Florida or Tennessee. Have you got any updates on that? What are they telling congressmen, members of our own party?
Well, my idea would be let's do it in Green Bay. That would be extraordinarily convenient.
Why, we'd lose then. The Republicans
no.
would lose if we went to Green Bay. I don't want to jinx this. And we don't have. We're not changing quarterbacks either. All right, you guys are changing quarterbacks, and we're not going to do that.
Hugh, so goes Green Bay, so goes the Republic. We all know that's true. It's been true since the beginning of our country. So everyone is welcome here.
Have they told you anything? Because obviously it's an RNC decision with the president's political team. It's not a congressional decision.
They have not told me. There is an interesting thing going on behind the scenes where a variety of my colleagues are trying to get in the president's ear and sway him towards their home city. I actually have not done that with Green Bay. The reason we don't hold the draft in Green Bay, as I understand it, is that we don't have the hotel. We don't have the hotel capacity.
God bless Green Bay, but you guys can't handle a football game. I mean, honestly, it's sort of like the people have to set up their trailers in the next town over, whatever it is. So I'm just.
I would like to invite you up to Lambeau this season, okay? So you can see for yourself what Titletown is like.
Oh, the
really
key
rid
thing.
yourselves of the Browns demons.
Just go back to Cleveland. If the president is listening, just go back to Cleveland. We had a great, lucky charm. It's a lucky foot we won. Look, Mike Gallagher, I have a serious question. People haven't been watching this much, but during our period of unrest, which I think is blessedly over because of the president and gave the cue on Monday night and everybody got ready to crack down and protesters are not dummies and Antifa know they're outnumbered. It got calm last night. My question is, during this 5 days, what has the Chinese communists been up to with their information operation?
Well, it's been a field day for them. And of course, throughout the coronavirus crisis, they have deployed what has been referred to as wolf warrior diplomacy. And this is a reference to the highest grossing Chinese movie of all time, Wolf Warrior 2, which, like Wolf Warrior 1, ends with the Chinese hero stabbing an American ex-mercenary to death after the American arrogantly says, we will always be superior to you. So it's bound up in this notion, after a century of humiliation, of reasserting China's rightful superiority globally. And I think while we might see a lot of what Chinese diplomats are doing as very ham-handed and likely to turn people off, we have to recognize that at least domestically, there is a large audience they're playing to. And of course, in the last few days, we've seen Chinese officials go into overdrive in trolling their American counterparts with protest slogans like Black Lives Matter and I Can't Breathe, really propagating this on social media. Chinese state-run media is featuring stories about the double standards of the U.S. for supporting Hong Kong demonstrators. And of course, this comes at the worst possible time, which is the anniversary of Tiananmen Square. And so I think it's incumbent upon the anarchists in America, notably Antifa and others, who are taking advantage of the peaceful protesters who have a right to protest and who are rightfully outraged, to stop what they're doing, because it's a bad look for America. And also, it does no justice to the cause that the peaceful protesters are out there. And certainly, I think all of us who follow U.S.-China competition need to grapple with this question of how do we convince our social media companies to hold the Chinese Communist Party apparatchiks and propagandists to at least the same standard they're holding the president of the United States. My argument to Jack Dorsey at Twitter was we should not allow government officials on Twitter when they denied their own citizens access to that platform. But Jack Dorsey did not respond to my letter. He just sent one of his underlings to give me a 15-page Orwellian language-filled a bit of nonsense. And so they don't seem willing to take action against these CCP propagandists.
I am reading from the National Review of Wolf Warrior 2's review. It says both movies, Wolf Warrior 1 and 2, are replete with nationalistic messages, patriotic themes, and they share a tagline, quote, "Anyone who offends China, no matter how remote, must be exterminated." If the original movie showed off China's technological advancement, military might, and determination domestically, Wolf 2 is all about demonstrating China's ambitions and aspirations internationally. In Wolf 2, China is the only powerful, responsible, and benevolent world power. Chinese workers help Africans build their economy. Chinese doctors work to discover a cure for a deadly pandemic, and the film unabashedly takes several swipes at the U.S. I actually had never heard of the movie until 2 minutes ago, Mike Gallagher. So you finally contributed something other than Green Bay Packers propaganda. I'd never heard of these movies until 2 minutes ago.
Well, you're welcome, Hugh. You can watch them for free on YouTube, and I would highly recommend it because, as you rightly point out, the original 2015 Wolf Warrior ends with the hero is named Leng Feng. His commanding general very subtly sums up the movie's message by saying, "Those who challenge China's resolve will have no safe place to hide." And that, I think, is really the transition we've seen, particularly under General Secretary Xi Jinping. It's to very aggressively challenge everybody around the world. He, in my opinion, feels like he has a window of opportunity here that ultimately will culminate. And I may get criticized for this, but this is what he said, in Taiwan's reunification with the mainland. Make no mistake, that is the legacy issue for Xi Jinping. And what we're seeing in Hong Kong, I think, is a prelude to that. And so I would recommend watching that. It's almost comical. The bad guy in both movies, as I mentioned before, they're both American military, a Navy SEAL in one case, with cartoonish names. One is Tomcat, the other is Big Daddy. And so clearly, I think this is a window into sort of culturally how some of these themes that Chinese diplomats are using actually play very well domestically.
Now, Mike Gallagher, when you get close to 100,000 followers, you begin to pick up trolls. When you get to 200,000, and I'm just knocking on the door of that, you've got trolls out all I do is mute them. I never block them. I just mute people because I don't want them to know they've risen to the level of, I want them to keep working at trolling me when they can't. I have noticed a huge uptick of bizarre kind of off-grammar comments in my feed, and I just think that this is the CCP working overtime. Has there been any report to Congress yet from the DNI, your former colleague, DNI Ratcliffe now, about what's going on? Because I think it's palpable what's happening in the information operation world.
Not yet, but this is something we're looking at as part of the China task force that I am on, that Congressman McCarthy rightfully set up, and we still hope to have Democratic participation in this. There's been some really good work in the think tank community. RAND has a recent report about this issue. The Henry Jackson Society in the UK has taken a look at this. So there's a lot of people looking at this issue. In fact, what's interesting is the president's recent decision to bar Chinese students with PLA affiliations from studying in the United States was actually the product of at least 5 years of work by a young kid, mid-20s, named Alex Josky in Australia, that's done the hard work of mapping out how Chinese Communist Party United Front actually works. So there's a lot of people that are slowly waking up to this, but we haven't quite yet figured out, and I will admit I haven't quite yet figured out, how do we convince our own social media companies to tackle this in a responsible way and recognize that, America's the good guys and the communists are the bad guys.
So if this had happened in the 30s, we would have seen the Nazis not only be covert on the internet, but also set up dummy accounts to push forward Nazi theory, Nazi responses, Nazi division. That's what the CCP is doing now. Is that a fair statement?
I think so. I mean, obviously, you mentioned your Twitter followers and your trolls. You'll get savaged at any time you make a comparison between the 30s and the present day. But the fact is, I think there are certain lessons from the early 30s and late 30s, if not the late 70s, which is something the first time I went on your show, I talked about with Robert O'Brien. In fact, I talked about the parallels between the late 70s and the present moment. That was back in 2016. And I think the most obvious one is you can't allow this type of aggression, whether it's physical aggression, military aggression, like island building in the South China Sea, or it's ideological warfare, which is what is taking place online right now. You cannot allow that to go unchecked, because if you do, you will get more aggression. And I think what most people still don't understand is that the Chinese Communist Party, under the leadership of General Secretary Xi Jinping, this isn't a situation in which 5 years from now, we're going to arrive at some modus vivendi and we'll have, different spheres of influence and we'll live peacefully. Their vision for the future is incompatible with our vision for the future unless we are willing to be relegated to only playing in our little Western hemisphere here in our near abroad, which is unacceptable to most Americans. And so at some point, we are going to have to realize that we have to start waging this new Cold War with a comprehensive set of tools, and we're not doing that right now.
So last question, Mike Gallagher. Last week I had you and Senator Angus King, independent from Maine, who caucuses with the Democrats. You were co-chairs of the Cyber Security Solarium Commission. There was a little momentum for putting those commission recommendations into phase 4. The riots have basically cleared the table of any coherent argument in the Capitol. Is there still an opportunity to do that?
There is, but we never started off with a strategy that depended on a phase 4. We're trying to get a lot of our recommendations into the National Defense Authorization Act, which is still moving forward, even though Nancy Pelosi has effectively disbanded the House of Representatives and surrendered all of our votes to a small select group of people. Still moving forward. That's our primary vehicle. And then we're working with great senators like my own, Ron Johnson, in the Senate to work through some legislation that can't go on NDAA. And again, in addition to Angus King, for whom I have undying love, is a great American, we have the great leadership of Mark Montgomery, who is our staff director, who is just doing incredible work behind the scenes right now.
Mike Gallagher, always a pleasure to speak with you, but the idea of a convention in Green Bay, boy, that's a good way to kill the convention. I'm just saying, go back to Cleveland, Mr. President. Go back to Cleveland. Thank you, Mike.
An open couch for you, Hugh. An open couch for you.
No, not going to Green Bay. I'd be the only reporter there. The Motel 6 would be overtaken by RNC staff. That's what would happen. Thank you, Congressman. China Mike Gallagher, that's what his nickname is at the White House. Let me tell you about Honorbound Coffee and ReliefFactor.com, because Pete and Seth Talbot, the father-son team that started ReliefFactor.com, which I take in the first hour of every show and remind you 2 more times, take it and feel better. Support for the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains in your life, the 4 supplements everyone should be taking. That Relief Factor has been extraordinarily successful because it works, and people all across the United States take it and they say, wow, I feel better. I gave it to my daughter-in-law 2 weeks ago for her lower back problems, and I hope you all will listen to me. It works. But they've been so successful, they said, how do we do something to help military families? So they started HonorboundCoffee.com, new coffee company, beautiful, wonderful, best coffee made in America. But you subscribe to it. They send the coffee however much you want to your door, 4 different blends, 4 different grinds. You got you had 16 different choices there. Whatever you choose, or many things that you choose, get delivered right to your door. Subscribe to it, because every dollar of profit from Honorbound Coffee goes to support military families. Originally through the Semper Fi and America's Fund, the Injured Marine and America's Fund, semperfifund.org. They are terrific, and I really want you to use honorboundcoffee.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
If you do not have any respiratory symptoms such as fever, cough, or runny nose, you do not need to wear a medical mask like this one. Mask alone can give you a false feeling of protection and can even be a source of infection when not used correctly. Masks should only be used by healthcare workers, caretakers, or by people who are sick with symptoms of fever and cough. Why?
Okay,
because healthcare workers and caretakers...
I throw in the towel, and I am sorry to Aaron, who texted me yesterday, and I called him out a little bit on air when he said, Mike, where's the science to the masks? And I said, what do you mean, where's the science? That's what they tell us. Well, now they're telling us, evidently, a mask is unnecessary, which is going to come as a real shock to, Disney World, Governor Cuomo, all the stores and businesses requiring masks. This will be a real newsflash to Governor Northam in Virginia. I give up. I come to work prepared. I'm studying. I am trying to be sure to present the correct information to you. I feel an enormous responsibility to get it right. But I should have learned my lesson yesterday when so many smart listeners were pushing back and pointing out that there is an absurd inconsistency from our health officials about just about everything having to do with coronavirus.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on a
complete pathetic excuse of a man. If you didn't see the video, he doesn't even have the respect to put on a suit and tie. He's standing there in his skinny pants with his hair full of product, with his shirt sleeves rolled up, with his neck
Monday night,
unbuttoned.
and then you have
That's
Tuesday.
the mayor of Minneapolis talking about what responsibility is, what it truly is, taking responsibility. I'll tell you what taking responsibility isn't. You deciding to withdraw your police from their police station so that it is looted by those rioters. I don't know about anybody else, but I think that police stations have guns in them and ammunition. What happened to that police station when you ordered it to be vacated and it was destroyed? Did you leave weapons in that police station? Are you going to take responsibility, Mayor Fry, for anybody killed in your city on your watch with weapons that you allowed to fall into the hands of the rioters? How does that bring justice for Mr. Floyd's family? You are the problem with America. Your spineless, gutless lack of leadership is why Minneapolis is burning, why 170 stores have been razed to the ground and more than $1 billion worth of damage is done, and why they had to call a curfew for 8 p.m. this evening, because you are a coward.
Welcome back, America. The President of the United States has been tweeting. I already told you 31 minutes ago the president tweeted law and order in caps, and 23 minutes ago he said really sick to watch the fake and totally slanted news, coming out of MSDNC and CNN. It bears no relationship to the truth or facts. They are merely offshoots of the DNC, much like the New York Times and the Amazon Washington Post. Just like 2016, but worse. Sad, but we will win. I think he is going to win. And by the way, the message that he sent on Monday was received, and we did not have violence last night. Message sent and received both in his remarks and in his walk to St. John. Mitch McConnell was on the floor of the Senate yesterday, cut number 16.
Last night, the streets of major American cities were again the scene of looting and violent rioting that serves no purpose except to hurt innocent people and undermine peaceful demonstrations. Every one of us has an obligation to distinguish peaceful protest over the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery from the violent riots that continue to see innocent people hurt, businesses and neighborhoods destroyed, and law enforcement officers assaulted. The former is a cherished constitutional right that every single citizen should support. And the latter is an unacceptable scourge that state and local leaders should have ended days ago.
That's
So
Mitch McConnell. That's just the message. President said it on Monday night. Mitch said it yesterday. Ted Cruz on Fox News. Very similar, cut number 17.
Well, I think there are a lot of people who are second-guessing the president, second-guessing our leadership. Now is a time for strong leadership. Rioting should not be tolerated. It cannot be allowed, and we need strong leadership from the president, from the attorney general, from governors, from mayors, from police chiefs. Every American has a right to speak and to peaceably express your freedom of speech. What you don't have a right to do is engage in violent rioting. What you don't have a right to...
That was the message that the president sent on Monday night, heard and received on Tuesday. Last night was calm. You cause and effect? Of course there's a cause and effect. You will not hear it from Blue Check Twitter. You will not hear it on cable news. Of course there's a cause and effect. Peaceful protests welcome, violence, maximum deterrent. It works. What is also working on the markets, brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew and Todd are lending money like, Sierra Pacific, with whom they work, has always been a lender, easy to work with. But Andrew and Todd are swamped, and they'll get to it faster than anybody else because they take care of the Hugh Hewitt Show listeners. You got to go to AndrewandTodd.com. Just answer a couple of questions. They'll be right back to you with what is the best thing to do. The mortgage market is working. The 10-year Treasury, it's still at the extraordinary 0.68. That's not the rate you'll get, but you'll get the lowest rates in history to refinance your house and save money, buy property that is safe against inflation. Property values always are. And you can help your kid, your son or daughter, your grandson or granddaughter get into a house by becoming a non-occupying co-borrower. Andrew and Todd will help you do that. 888-888-1172. The lead story today, America's in turmoil and stocks are booming. Is the market broken? No. It just notes this disconnect, apparent disconnect between why are markets going up, and turmoil in the streets, because markets are forward-looking. They wonder what's going to happen, not tomorrow, but 3 months from now when the earnings calls are all done, the next round of earning calls. And they're optimistic that we just had the worst quarter in American economic history because of the virus, because of a mandatory shutdown. Markets are pricing in, and they still don't quite know how big the boom's going to be, but it's a big boom, and it's coming your way. Jobs will reopen. Obviously, we've gone to herd immunity. We're going to follow, it'll be interesting to follow the public health consequences of these demonstrations. But there was no social distancing. If you watched, as I did yesterday, tens of thousands of people marching peacefully in thousands of cities across the United States, there is no social distancing, right? If the virus is abroad, and it is, it will be everywhere, and we are going to go with the Sweden experiment. By the way, that means you might need masks. So let me finish, Andrew and Todd. You can get your home at 888-888-1172. Give them a call, 888-888-1172. And if you need masks for the new era that we're in, go to givingmask.com/Hugh. Let's continue to flood children's hospitals with new equipment. Great masks, the highest end masks. Every order that you get from givingmasks.com/Hugh, H-U-G-H, they will match your order, and they will send one of the highest end masks, the hospital quality mask, to a children's hospital I have selected. Please go ahead and do that. Givingmask.com/Hugh. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, hour number 3 today, Peter Baker of the New York Times joins me. We'll talk about this cause and effect. It's real. After the president spoke, the message was received on Monday. Tuesday night was calm. That's what was needed. We'll talk with Peter Baker, Senator Joni Ernts, Tim Alberta. It's all coming up on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by givingmask.com. Go to givingmask.com/Hugh.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Now, I have a series of questions. I just would like to know, yes, no, I don't know, as to whether or not you will be calling as a witness to the Judiciary Committee the following people. Will you be subpoenaing James Comey?
Yes.
Andrew McCabe?
Yes.
John Brennan?
Yes.
James Clapper?
Yes.
Susan Rice?
Don't know.
Have you had a chance yet to read then acting Attorney General Sally Yates' statement to the special counsel, which was included as Exhibit 4 in the motion to dismiss the Flynn case?
Not all of it. There are 53 of them. We're going through them right now.
It is shocking, and I go back to being in the Department of Justice in 83, 84, 85. It is shocking that she did not know that the FBI was going to interview General Flynn.
Clapper, right, I agree. Clapper and Yates were called about 3 years ago before my subcommittee when the whole Flynn thing got out in the public, when the Washington Post indicated Flynn was talking to the Russian ambassador. Number one, Flynn's the incoming national security advisor. He has every right to be talking to the Russian ambassador. Why are we surveilling the incoming administration by the outgoing administration? But we call Clapper and Yates before the committee. I want to recall them both and ask them about the Horowitz report. Ask them, if you knew then what you know now, would you have a different view of this whole investigation? I'm starting with Rosenstein next Wednesday. He signed the last warrant application. I want to ask him if you knew then what you know now. If you knew.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
An angry crowd broke into Minneapolis Police Department's 3rd Precinct headquarters Thursday night. Just stop and think about that. They broke into a police headquarters? An angry crowd, that's a mob, and that's illegal. And the police retreated, I guess, and set fire to the building. Okay, so you're endangering firemen. So the police retreated and firemen got endangered, capping another day of protests, many of them violent. The police station on East Lake Street has been the epicenter of this protest for this week, for people demanding justice after the death of George Floyd, who died Monday. Minnehaha Lake Wine and Spirits, the target of looters the night before, was set ablaze. Protests have been taking across the metro all day long, both peaceful and violent. On Wednesday night, a man was fatally shot as crowds looted and burned buildings on East Lake Street late into the night. It has spread to St. Paul, and I do know Minneapolis pretty well. I am a veteran of rolling around. The hotel in St. Paul, the St. Paul is my favorite hotel. St. Paul Cathedral is my favorite church in America. I love the Charlie Brown week. I love everything about the city. I go there often, and if it wasn't for the fact that it was in Minnesota cold, I would live there part of the year.
Perfect weekend ahead. It's going to be about and sunny all 3 days.
Well, that's good. It's not going to be hot.
No.
If it was hot, I would say, oh, my goodness, we're in trouble. Look, the Michael Freeman, who was Amy Klobuchar's successor, Amy punted on the bad cop charge. He did not help things yesterday.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
If you do not have any respiratory symptoms such as fever, cough, or runny nose, you do not need to wear a medical mask like this one. Mask alone can give you a false feeling of protection and can even be a source of infection when not used correctly. Masks should only be used by healthcare workers, caretakers, or by people who are sick with symptoms of fever and cough. Why?
Okay,
because healthcare workers and caretakers...
I throw in the towel, and I am sorry to Aaron, who texted me yesterday, and I called him out a little bit on air when he said, Mike, where's the science to the masks? And I said, what do you mean, where's the science? That's what they tell us. Well, now they're telling us, evidently, a mask is unnecessary, which is going to come as a real shock to, Disney World, Governor Cuomo, all the stores and businesses requiring masks. This will be a real news flash to Governor Northam in Virginia. I give up. I come to work prepared. I'm studying. I am trying to be sure to present the correct information to you. I feel an enormous responsibility to get it right. But I should have learned my lesson yesterday when so many smart listeners were pushing back and pointing out that there is an absurd inconsistency from our health officials about just about everything having to do with coronavirus.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
During the campaign 2016, lock her up was a very popular chant at his various rallies. And during the debate, Hillary says, it's a good thing you're not president. And he responded. It was very, very clever, witty response. Yeah, because you'd be in jail. Everybody cracks up. Well, the president took office. Did he prosecute her? Did they file charges against her? No. But now people are upset because Bill Barr doesn't expect there to be charges against Biden and Obama. Can you imagine what would happen if the Trump administration charged them? And by the way, when Trump leaves office, after he finishes his second term, you can expect that the next Democratic president is going to figure out a way of charging Donald Trump with various crimes.
I have a general idea of how Mr. Durham's investigation is going. And as I have indicated, some aspects of the matter are being examined as potential crimes. But we have to bear in mind what the Supreme Court recently reminded us of in the Bridgegate case. As the court said there's a difference between an abuse of power and a federal crime. Not every abuse of power, no matter how outrageous, is necessarily a federal crime. Now, as to President Obama and Vice President Biden, whatever their level of involvement, based on the information I have today, I don't expect
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
My position, as you know, the draconian measures are of biblical proportions. God, is he right? Hundreds of millions of people are suffering. In developing countries, many will die from starvation. In developed countries, many will die from unemployment. Unemployment is mortality. There are dead people thanks to Gavin Newsom. There are ruined lives. There are increased alcoholism thanks to Gavin Newsom and Eric Garcetti. They have so many victims on their hands, but they have blunt left-wing consciences. If it's good for the Democratic Party, it's good. That's how communists thought. There is no difference. Good is what is good for the party.
Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. Coming up later in the hour today, Iowa Senator Joni Ernts. Tim Alberta joins me as well. Kicking off the hour, though, Peter Baker, New York Times chief White House correspondent. Follow him on Twitter at Peter Baker NYT. Great Twitter feed. Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Hugh, good. How are you?
Good. Everyone in the Baker team healthy and fine?
We are. Thank you for asking. Everybody's good here. We have nothing to complain about. Although I think like everybody else, we're hoping to get through this year.
Yeah, I think that pretty much America has adopted de facto herd immunity, haven't we, after the marches of the last 5 days? If there aren't spikes after that, then the virus is gone on summer vacation.
Well, we're going to find out, that's for sure. I mean, we're not having sporting events, but we're having pretty large crowds. And it's going to be a real test of it. It's interesting to be at these. I've gone to a couple of these nights of protests, and in effect, you're right. We are testing where this virus is. It's almost like people have forgotten that it's out there. I hope it's not something we're going to regret.
I think we're going to find, as they found when they recalled all the cadets to West Point for the president's speech, the seniors, 15 out of 1,000 already had the virus. And so I think it is asymptomatic to such a degree that those protesters are going to find. It just follows, Peter. It's highly contagious, but it's also asymptomatic. And most of those protesters, not all, but most are under the age of 30. Agree?
Yeah, a lot of young folks. One of the things that struck me, Hugh, in going out there is how many of them are wearing masks. It's really interesting. These are protesters who are, obviously upset with the system, upset with the establishment, and yet most of them are sort of following rules, at least to the extent that they're wearing masks and understand that that's not a good thing to be out there without. Not all, some aren't, but a lot of them are.
Factual question. Was tear gas used at Lafayette Park on Monday afternoon?
Oh, it's a great question. I spent a lot of time yesterday trying to figure this out. We have not got, Park Police said they didn't use it. Secret Service wouldn't say one way or the other. I think it's clear there was some sort of a chemical irritant, okay? Because my reporters, my colleagues who were there, and obviously a lot of the protesters were clearly affected by it in their eyes and so forth. What kind it was, I don't know that we can say. I'm not an expert on it, but I think that's one of the things they want to find out.
The statement of Chief Gregory Monahan of the United States Park Police is, quote, on Monday, June 1, the United States Park Police worked with the United States Secret Service to have temporary fencing installed inside Lafayette Park. At approximately 6:33 p.m., violent protesters on H Street Northwest began throwing projectiles, including bricks, frozen water bottles, and caustic liquids. The protesters also climbed onto a historic building at the north end of Lafayette Park that was destroyed by arson days prior. Intelligence has revealed calls for violence against the police, and officers found caches of glass bottles, baseball bats, and metal poles hidden along the street. To curtail the violence that was underway, the USPP, United States Park Police, following established policy, issued 3 warnings over a loudspeaker to alert demonstrators on H Street to evacuate the area. Horse-mounted patrols, civil disturbance units, and additional personnel were used to clear the area. As many of the protesters became more combative, continued to throw projectiles, and attempted to grab officers' weapons, officers then employed the use of smoke canisters and pepper balls. No tear gas was used by USPP officers or other assisting law enforcement partners to close the area at Lafayette Park. Subsequently, the fence was installed. It is that last line, Peter. No tear gas was used by USPP officers or other assisting law enforcement partners to close the area at Lafayette Park that I'm pointing to. I don't believe there is any statement contrary to that by anyone out there. Am I wrong?
Well, remember, the Park Police is speaking for itself. It's not speaking for all the police agencies there. We were told by some quietly by some Park Police officers, is, look, we didn't have tear gas masks, but you're going to have to ask the Secret Service about what they did. Secret Service won't say. So, it's I don't consider that a completely solved issue yet. But I also think that, whether it's pepper spray or tear gas, what I'm saying is that there was clearly a chemical irritant of some sort.
I think the tear gas, what I'm getting to is the media did not report this correctly. I also want to get with you, Peter. I had a...
Well, but it's one of these things, it's one of these things that's a matter of term of art as opposed to the broader picture. The broader picture is that some sort of a chemical irritant was used in order to clear the square.
Well, but I saw tear gas 1,000 times. On Monday afternoon, I watched every minute of it. I saw tear gas 1,000 times. I said, that's not tear gas. I know what tear gas does to crowds. I was in L.A. in 1992 covering the riot. I know what tear gas is. But the media ran with it, Peter. And I also think they ran with the term photo op. I did not think that was a photo op at all. I thought that was a message sent and apparently received across the country because we did not have violence last night. So I just thought immediately the media went to Orange Man bad. Your response?
Well, again, I think whether it's tear gas or pepper spray, it's a term of art. We should be as precise as we can. The larger picture is that a chemical irritant was used, and that may be appropriate. I'm not arguing about that one way or the other. But to say that tear gas wasn't used, it wasn't like something wasn't used. Something was. Our photographer, our reporters were down there, including one of our reporters who's a combat Marine. Were very insistent that yes, a chemical irritant was used. Whatever, we should be as precise as we can what kind it is. And we were trying to figure that out. But, to say whether it's tear gas or pepper spray, it misses the larger point.
No, it doesn't. I think the larger point is without evidence and without confirmation, most of the mainstream media reported the use of tear gas on Monday afternoon, which has a specific connotation very different from pepper spray. And I think they did so because they wanted it to be tear gas. I think
Hugh, I think they did so because they were rubbing their eyes and trying to get it out of their eyes. So they were there. They were on the ground, and they were writing about what they experienced. They were writing about what they saw and experienced in front of them.
You know, I watched the president walk. If they had used tear gas, Peter, people would be throwing up. It is not possible to make that mistake unless you willfully want to believe tear gas was used. Pepper spray may have been used further away, but the president would not have walked through tear gas. I mean, the Secret Service wouldn't have allowed it, nor the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of Defense. It was just a collapse of reportorial standards. I don't think you have to be defensive. I don't think you used it, but I saw on TV again and again and again the erroneous claim, and I have the Park Police statement or other assisting law enforcement partners. Secret Service doesn't comment. I've never seen the Secret Service use tear gas ever. I think the media is embarrassed, and they are trying to find a way out of this now. But I want to give you the last word before I move on.
No, I've said what I had to say. I think we're making a lot out of the precise form of chemical irritant. I think the fact that the chemical irritant was used is the point.
All right. Now, my question is, how does the White House feel, your sources there, about the cause and effect of the president's messaging on Monday and no violence on Tuesday?
No, I'm sure you're right that they'll take credit for it. There's no question that the president and people around him thought that Monday worked out well. They were happy with the images. They liked, obviously, the pictures that emerged of the president striding across Lafayette Square purposefully. They immediately began using it in their campaign Twitter feeds, and that was they saw that as a message of resolve and determination. Obviously, this is one of these moments like a Rorschach test where different parts of the country see things differently, and it caused a lot of consternation among Democrats and some Republicans who thought that clearing the square in order to make it possible for him to go across there to stand in front of the church and the complaints from the Episcopal diocese were more problematic.
I understand completely that liberals thought it was awful and conservatives thought it was wonderful. What I'm talking about is there was no violence last night. It worked. Whatever the message was that the president sent, and I think he sent it mostly to local law enforcement that we've got your backs, and that people who might be inclined to violence understand that the climate changed on Tuesday morning. Because of Monday afternoon's events.
Yeah, but also I think that may be, and it's also true. In talking to some of these protesters, that they don't want the violence either, and that they have done more to try to enforce, some discipline on the peaceful demonstrations and keep some of the agitators from hijacking them.
I think that's correct because the peaceful protest is not an issue in America. I think of the March, Run for Your Lives march in 2 years ago. After the Parkland shootings, I went down there. We can have much larger columns of people than this and not have violence. It is not a requirement for these protests. Peter, what about the RNC? What is your reporting? It seems to me that it's gone from Charlotte, that the Democratic governor there has killed the merchants' dreams of having the RNC. I mean, it's a big win for the city. What's your reporting on it?
Yeah, no, I think the president said they're out. I think that's likely to be the case. What we're hearing is we think it'll probably end up someplace in Florida. It'll be a more constrained event. You can't in June come up with what is required for a full-on convention of the sort that we're used to in our lifetime in just 2 months. So it'll end up being something more restrained than it had been. Florida seems to be the likeliest scenario, although not the only one. They're looking at Memphis, I understand, and some other places. It's a mark of the moment. Everybody's trying to figure out what's appropriate, what's not going forward in terms of large crowds. As you say, we're sort of testing that in the streets right now. And it's a shame, I think, for everybody because obviously Charlotte, I think, was looking forward, at least North Carolina was looking forward to the convention.
No, the governor and the mayor have cost their city millions and millions and millions of dollars. Peter Baker, always good to talk to you. Follow him at Peter Baker NYT. Follow me to the next segment, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Metaxas Show. I'm talking to Ralph Reed, who has a new book out, For God and for Country, The Christian Case for Trump. This character issue comes up over and over. And as I listened to you talk about Trump's fulfilling his promises, I thought that's a pretty big character issue. If you say, what is somebody's character like? The fact that they do what they say they're going to do, that's a pretty big one right there. Rarely do the media talk about that aspect of his presidency.
That one of the reasons why he won, not the only reason, but a big reason, was because people were so turned off by decades of career politicians telling them one thing during a campaign, and then not fulfilling it after they were elected. And so to kind of rebuild that trust, this is important to him. And look, I'm familiar with the criticism of the Never Trump community, including the Christian Never Trump community. And my response to it in the book is, look, I think character matters. I definitely think that voters, including voters of faith, should make assessments about a candidate's character. But the argument that I make is that those assessments also involve their stands on the issues and whether or not they'll keep their promises. And it also involves a comparison, an often complex and
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Hey, folks, I'm talking to Ken Starr. It's the Eric Metaxas Show. I'm holding in my hand his latest book. It's called Contempt. How would you answer someone who says what you did with Clinton is just about the same thing that Mueller et al. Did with Trump? What is the difference in your mind of your investigation and his?
The end product was we found absolute ironclad crimes. 14 different people were convicted in the Whitewater investigation, and for very substantive offenses. A number of the prosecutions, I don't say this critically, but it's a difference, in the Mueller investigation were convicted of so-called process crimes. Think of General Flynn, right? That, of course, is now being revisited. We will see what happens. I'm making no predictions about that. But with respect to the President of the United States, we found clear-cut evidence of crimes, perjury and obstruction of justice. And that's all laid out in the Starr referral. What Bob found, and what Bob Mueller found, was that there was no Russian collusion. Vladimir Putin, according to the report, it would be intriguing to get Bob Mueller to say here were his sources if he could reveal them. He might not be able to. Vladimir Putin, after the election, calls together some of his closest advisors.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Bill in Ohio. What do you think, Bill? Bill, he's not there. My stream is frozen. 1-800-520-1234. Dave in Arizona. Hello, Dave.
Thanks so much for taking the call here. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about those deaths you were mentioning.
There are 11 people dead in the violence, you mean? The 11 people killed across the United States, in addition to George Floyd in the 5 days of unrest. 11 people lost their lives.
Well, I was looking at the statistics for last year, the 19 white and the 9 black.
Yes, that's according to the Washington Post.
Yeah, and I saw the same information. The crazy thing for me, when you look at statistics like that, and you don't know the denominator, you can't really make an assessment or judgment of that.
Well, yes, you can, Dave, because the other ones are less. I could look it up. I don't have it here, but the total number of people shot in the United States, 19 is the majority. 19 are white, 9 are black, and the rest are something else. And you can make the assessment that that's disproportionate to the population of African Americans. I mean, it's just that's statistics.
Not every person that's a population member gets stopped.
No, we're talking about death. We're talking about that statistic is the Washington Post tracks every fatality from a police shooting, and then they divide it by race, and African Americans are disproportionately in that small number overrepresented. That's all I'm saying. That's just a fact. I appreciate the call. Let me do the market review because the big news today, brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. With Sierra Pacific Mortgage, they will help you buy a house anywhere in the United States. And people are buying houses because they see inflation coming. As a result, the unrest has subsided last night. I don't even think they'll have big marches today. People can't keep doing this. Mom and dad are calling their kids and saying, "Where are you, by the way?" And the story of the protester in Pittsburgh, the 20-year-old who worked for Amazon, who the cops figured out who he was. He was, wearing a black mask, etc. They figured it out. They've arrested him. The word got spread pretty quickly after President Trump's speech and after the walk to St. John's. The message went out. They had one more night of violence in New York, and it's gone. It's petered out. They know that the police out there are just not going to put up with this. And so they've gone out. And so the stock market, not surprisingly, is indifferent to the 5 days of violence. It's a disaster for the small businesses. I mean, it's a disaster for everyone who got looted and burned out. And I've seen a lot of small business owners on TV, but I look at the Financial Times and they say markets are booming. And I know why. Saudi Arabia is celebrating the $40 a barrel mark being crested yesterday. They're going to hold on, the OPEC group plus Russia and the United States. Everybody's got a game plan. Oil's going to stay above 40. The oil company industries are coming back. And the forward-looking economists, investors, venture capitalists are saying, my gosh, there's only so many goods to buy. There's a lot more money to buy it with as you distribute stimulus checks. Unemployment will fall dramatically and quickly as America reopens. Trump will do, every business in the United States is going to benefit from the deregulatory order that has gone out. Every local government is going to say, rebuild, here you go, here's your permit. It's going to be a boom. I don't think it's going to be, we don't have to wait for the fourth quarter. I think the third quarter is going to be a boom, and that's reflected everywhere. So get your real estate purchase done now. 888-888-1172. Well, my number is 1-800-520-1234. If you have comments, 1-800-520-1234. Senator Ernts coming up. But if you are going back to shopping, if you are going back to working, you'll need a mask. Most places are going to require it so that if you are an asymptomatic carrier, you do not spread it. That's what masks are for. Go to givingmasks.com/Hugh. They're scaled up. I ordered masks with the Cleveland Indians and Cleveland Browns on it. I still haven't got them, because I ordered them from Fantastics, which is they use mules to deliver the mask. Not givingmasks.com. They arrive the next day. And when you use /Hugh, givingmasks.com/Hugh, every order that you put in results in a high-end mask being sent to a children's hospital. So please do what I did. Use givingmasks.com/Hugh if you want them quickly. Givingmasks.com/Hugh. Coming back with Senator Joni Ernts. Go nowhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Don't forget to sign up for the Hughiverse. All of Hugh's broadcasts on demand, the after show, which in my opinion is worth the price all by itself, Dwayne FM, and all sorts of bonus content. www.hughiverse.com.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Now, I have a series of questions. I just would like to know, yes, no, I don't know, as to whether or not you will be calling as a witness to the Judiciary Committee the following people. Will you be subpoenaing James Comey?
Yes.
Andrew McCabe?
Yes.
John Brennan?
Yes.
James Clapper?
Yes.
Susan Rice?
Don't know.
Have you had a chance yet to read then acting Attorney General Sally Yates' statement to the special counsel, which was included as Exhibit 4 in the motion to dismiss the Flynn case?
Not all of it. There are 53 of them. We're going through them right now.
It is shocking, and I go back to being in the Department of Justice in 83, 84, 85. It is shocking that she did not know that the FBI was going to interview Attorney General Flynn.
Clapper, right, I agree. Clapper and Yates were called about 3 years ago before my subcommittee when the whole Flynn thing got out in the public, when the Washington Post indicated Flynn was talking to the Russian ambassador. Number one, Flynn's the incoming national security advisor. He has every right to be talking to the Russian ambassador. Why are we surveilling the incoming administration by the outgoing administration? But we call Clapper and Yates before the committee. I want to recall them both and ask them about the Harlot's report. Ask them, if you knew then what you know now, would you have a different view of this whole investigation? I'm starting with Rosenstein next Wednesday. He signed the last warrant application. I want to ask him, if you knew then what you know now, if you knew.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Study also says the vast majority, between 90 and 95% of the civilians shot by officers were actively attacking the police or other citizens when they were shot. The vast majority, between 90 and 95, I'm reading this again for the young lady that says that I was defending the officers that were involved in the killing of George Floyd. So since she has difficulty grasping me when I speak, I just want to do it 2 times for you, just for you. The vast majority, between 90 and 95, of civilians shot by officers were actively attacking police or other citizens when they were shot. 90% also were armed with a weapon when they were shot. The horrific cases of accidental shootings, like mistaking a cell phone for a gun, are rare, said the co-author of the study. Quote, this is him again. We hear about the really horrendous and tragic cases of police shootings for a reason. They're awful cases. They have major implications for police community relations, and so they should get attention. But this ends up skewing perceptions about police shootings and leads people to believe that all fatal shootings are similar to the ones we hear about, and that's just not the case. End of quote. Now, in one recent year, I think there were about 300 Americans injured by lightning. And you look at the number of unarmed blacks who were killed by the police. Frankly, as a black man, you are more likely to be injured by lightning than to be an unarmed black man killed by the police. That is how rare it is. And frankly, I don't know anybody that's been hit by lightning. Do you?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
This is clearly the World Health Organization's, who's also with the World Health Organization, which is the clip that I saw last night on social media. She again assures people that if you're healthy and you're not exhibiting symptoms and you're not taking care of COVID-19 sick patients, or you're not a healthcare worker, you don't need to wear a mask. And here's cut 10. This is Christine Francis again from another expert from the World Health Organization.
Medical masks like this one cannot protect against the new coronavirus when used alone. When you wear them, you must combine with hand hygiene and other preventive measures. WHO only recommends the use of masks in specific cases. If you have cough, fever, and difficulty breathing, you should wear a mask and seek medical care. If you do not have these symptoms, you do not have to wear masks because there is no evidence that they protect people who are not sick. However,
right, I give up.
if you are healthy,
I'm done. No masks. Wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. Okay, whatever. Like I said, Disney World might want to consult with the World Health Organization before requiring people to wear masks in order to ride Space Mountain. I'm just saying. But I'm no longer going to try to impose my will on any of this crap on you.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Welcome back, America. John Androzek singing Slice. So appropriate to introduce Senator Joni Ernts, the author of Daughter of the Heartland, a wonderful read about a very unique American. Senator Ernts, welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show. First, congratulations on winning renomination last night. And second, congratulations on the publication of Daughter of the Heartland. I hope you know the Luntz rule. You've got to say Daughter of the Heartland 7 times in any interview for anyone to remember Daughter of the Heartland.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm glad to be through our primary election in Iowa, driving on to the general election. And yes, thank you so much. Daughter of the Heartland has been a labor of love over the course of the past year, and glad to have it out there. And hopefully, we'll be able to inspire others through the story.
There is quite a lot I did not know. Of course, I knew of your combat service, first female combat veteran to serve in the United States Senate. Also, I knew that the famous castrating hogs ad, and then on page 21, castrating hogs is one of those jobs nobody wants to do. You make reference to it in the book, but you really are a daughter of a farm in Iowa. I mean, you're the real deal, Senator Ernts. How many people are still shocked by that?
Well, a lot still are outside of the Midwest. But one thing that really resonates across the state is the fact that you've worn those work boots and you've done those types of activities as you're growing up as a kid on a farm. And all through my first campaign, as I was crisscrossing Iowa, all these different Iowans, they were like, yeah, you know, I used to do that when I was a kid too. And yeah, I still do that today, you know, that kind of thing. But it really brings people together when they have shared roots, shared values, and just to understand that I know how to work with my hands. I know what it is to work hard and labor hard. And one thing that my folks taught me is that there are no jobs beneath me. Work is, as long as it's honest work, it's worthy of doing.
You know, Senator Ernst, this book is pretty candid. You're a victim of rape in your college years. You're also the victim of domestic abuse, and it's detailed, your former husband, and you apparently get along well. I'm sure you're both proud of your Army daughter. But my question is, did you make a conscious decision? I'm just going to put it all out there in one book because it's really blunt.
Absolutely. And just yesterday, I had a friend ask me if I would have put all of this into a book if it hadn't been exposed going through my very public divorce, and likely not. Many of these stories were very personal and very challenging for me to talk about. It was hard to share those things with other members of my family that weren't aware of some of those certain situations. But the fact is, after, all of the information came out through the divorce, I had so many women and a handful of men as well that reached out and said, Joni, I get you. I've been through these same circumstances. I had one woman that said, wow, you've gone through this, and yet you served as a battalion commander in the Iowa Army National Guard. You're a senator today. She said, you've overcome all of this. And she's like, you're an inspiration. And so I want people to know you don't have to be defined by the singular challenges that you experience in your lifetime. You can overcome those. You can set your own goals, and don't let the naysayers put you down out there. You've got to drive through it. You've got to make your way through it. And that's what I hope other young women will see as well, is that whatever has occurred in their lifetimes, you can get beyond it. You can set your goals and you can achieve them.
Trauma does not define people. That's what I take away from Daughter of the Heartland, is that Joni Ernts is really one of the strongest members of the United States Senate. I love having her on, but I had no idea about this level of trauma. I also did not know that neither of your parents went to college. Now, I think that's really remarkable, but they always made it clear you were going.
Right, and that is not uncommon, especially where I'm from. I'm from Southwest Iowa, a very rural county. We have just a little over 10,000 folks that live in my county. Most of them will reside in the county seat there where I live in Red Oak. But many of the folks there have not gone to college, especially those of my parents' age. Now, we have a lot of wonderful community colleges in our area, and we do have some folks that will go on to four-year institutions and beyond. But truly, when you're living in the heartland, some of the best jobs that you can get are those technical jobs or those jobs related to agriculture. Technology in agriculture is really big, and I wanted to highlight that in my story as well. You know, when I was going to school, I worked really hard. I loved school. I would not miss a day of school. And so my parents really enforced in me, you know, you have the abilities, you will go to school. And it was just a matter of, okay, finding my way. How do I get to school? My sister has an associate's degree. She went to a community college in our area. My brother, well, he's one of those kids that probably best not to go to school. So he took a couple classes at a community college and decided that wasn't for him. So he works on a rail crew with one of the railroads. So it's just, it doesn't define you again. You know, it's titles throughout my life. Titles, I'm not impressed by titles. And even wearing the title of senator, that's not really who I am. People back home call me Joni.
So, Senator, I call you Senator. I got to also tell you, I've never heard of Trixie Belden until I read Daughter in the Heartland. I've never heard of Trixie Belden. Now, I have a granddaughter who's a voracious bookworm like you describe yourself to be growing up. So I got to find out, is Trixie Belden still working? I mean, does it work for this young generation, for kids under 7 and 6 and that sort of thing?
I think it would, because of the wonderful adventures that Trixie was always engaged in with her friends, and it's different because it's set in a different era. So, you know, they won't be talking on their smartphones to each other, that kind of thing. But certainly it is a great adventure. Clean stories, they're mystery stories, and if you have a child with an imagination, wonderful book.
That just charmed me. Now I want to get to a hard question. You're a veteran of the National Guard. You led a battalion in combat. Yesterday, Bill de Blasio said the National Guard couldn't help in New York City because they weren't trained. I was astonished by that.
Wow.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was a company commander when I served overseas, and then went on to be a battalion commander later in the Iowa Army National Guard. And I can tell you, just from my own experience in wearing the combat boots, is that our National Guardsmen are some of the finest trained individuals, whether it is, rolling supplies through Iraq or, supporting air missions, medevacs in Afghanistan, whatever our National Guardsmen are involved in, they are the best. And I say that even when you put them next to our active duty soldiers, because our civilian warriors, they are trained not only in their military occupational skills or their specialties, but they also oftentimes have other trades from their civilian occupations, which makes them very well-rounded. They get it. They know how to work with a civilian public. I would say that they are the best suited to go in and work with their communities. That's exactly what they are trained for. And I would say that people that express that they're not trained have absolutely no idea what our National Guard does.
Well, that's Bill de Blasio in a nutshell, and it's not just about the National Guard. Senator Ernst, Iowa always sort of emerges for people as being the heartland of the heartland. So I want, since you've done the full Grassley recently, means visiting all 99 counties in Iowa, what is the reaction to this last week's violence? 11 people are dead in addition to George Floyd, thousands of businesses ruined, mass looting of the sort we haven't seen in decades. What are you hearing from Iowans?
Iowans, they care. I mean, they really care about issues that go on across our country. And yes, I do a 99 county tour every year, just as Senator Grassley has done. And you really get to know your population by doing that and the people that you work for. And they do get very concerned when they see this level of violence. They were so saddened by the death of George Floyd, an unnecessary death, a horrible death for this man. But then to see those peaceful protesters, and we should hear from peaceful protesters. For heaven's sakes, it's one of the greatest things about our country is the freedoms that we have to express ourselves. And these peaceful protesters are being drowned out by these rioters and these looters, and it breaks their hearts. It breaks my heart to see what's going on. And so we've heard time and time again from Iowans all across the state that they're just saddened by this is the state that we have here in the greatest country on the face of the planet. We can work through this. We can come out stronger on the tail end of this. But we've got to be willing to listen, and we've got to be willing to put down those that are demeaning and degrading the message that those peaceful protesters are trying to get out.
Now, Senator Ernst, to wrap up, I believe that the country has shifted significantly red in the last week because the left wing of the Democratic Party is so out of touch with the middle of America. I just think they've gone with the AOC squad, with Nancy Pelosi's rhetoric, with Bill de Blasio. I think they've just shifted way left. Have you seen that in your nominee against whom you will be running in the fall?
Oh, my goodness. I am running against a woman that was backed by Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's pumped millions upon millions of dollars into Iowa. And even the other Democratic candidates that were running in their primary expressed such disappointment that the candidate would be handpicked by the liberal coastal elite. And I think that will come across as well as we move through the election cycle. Iowans want to pick their own candidates, not have the minority leader of the United States Senate, who's from New York City, pick the candidate for them.
Well, Senator Ernst, congratulations on your win. Congratulations on Daughter of the Heartland. Continue to speak out. And congratulations as well as having raised another Army officer. So I'm very pleased and great to see you. I hope I run into you in National again soon.
Thank you.
Last time I saw Senator Ernst, it was at Reagan, and we chatted a bit, but always welcome on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Time for me to remind you. There it is, my ReliefFactor.com bag. Took it in the first hour, reminded you last hour, remind you today. I wish Relief Factor would come up with something for allergies. Just before Senator Ernst came on, I did a 7-sneeze cycle. That's like a record. And that's the pollen count, the demonstrators in D.C., God love them. They were peaceful yesterday. D.C. is a place of demonstration, long storied history of peaceful marches, including the March on Washington, Dr. Martin Luther King led 1963, mobilization against the war, March for Your Life. I mean, pink protesters, they're all welcome here. If they're sore from their protesting, ReliefFactor.com, but there's nothing we can do about the pollen. That's going to do more to keep people indoors. And even the very successful demonstration of resolve by President Trump in his Rose Garden remarks and walk to St. John's yesterday, 2 days ago, Monday, excuse me. But ReliefFactor.com, if you're out there walking and protesting and you went a little bit far and you got sore, take it from me, center right guy. ReliefFactor.com will help you. Just go to their website, get the starter pack for $19.95. Start doing what I do every day. Take it. And if you've got allergies, it does not work on allergies. Allegra for you. But I'll be right back, America. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by GivingMass.com. Go to GivingMass.com/Hugh.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I am reading to you an interview with the former head of the Israeli Health Ministry. He's an MD. He's a liberal, member of the Labor Party in Israel. Okay? So he's talking, he said this is the mother of all hysterias, which is my position, as you know. The draconian measures are of biblical proportions. God, is he right? Hundreds of millions of people are suffering. In developing countries, many will die from starvation. In developed countries, many will die from unemployment. Unemployment is mortality. There are dead people thanks to Gavin Newsom. There are ruined lives. There are increased alcoholism thanks to Gavin Newsom and Eric Garcetti. They have so many victims on their hands, but they have blunt left-wing consciences. If it's good for the Democratic Party, it's good. That's how communists thought. There is no difference. Good is what is good for the party.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Eric Metaxas Show. I'm talking to Ralph Reed, who has a new book out, For God and for Country, the Christian Case for Trump. This character issue comes up over and over. And as I listen to you talk about Trump's fulfilling his promises, I thought that's a pretty big character issue. If you say, what is somebody's character like? The fact that they do what they say they're going to do, that's a pretty big one right there. Rarely do the media talk about that aspect of his presidency.
That one of the reasons why he won, not the only reason, but a big reason, was because people were so turned off by decades of career politicians telling them one thing during a campaign, and then not fulfilling it after they were elected. And so to kind of rebuild that trust, this is important to him. And look, I'm familiar with the criticism of the Never Trump community, including the Christian Never Trump community. And my response to it in the book is, look, I think character matters. I definitely think that voters, including voters of faith, should make assessments about a candidate's character. But the argument that I make is that those assessments also involve their stands on the issues and whether or not they'll keep their promises. And it also involves a comparison, an often complex and multivariate.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined now by Politico's Tim Alberta. You should be following him at Tim Alberta. His American Carnage book, a bestseller this year. Just one of the better reads of the last 5 years. Good morning, Tim. Everybody on Team Alberta feeling good?
Yeah, we're doing okay. How are the Hewitts?
Everybody is fine. Now, my question is, Elizabeth Warren marched with the protesters in Washington yesterday. Was that a photo op?
Oh, yeah. Of course it was.
Did you see it anywhere described as a photo op?
No, and I think it's, Hugh, look, I have been having this conversation with sources for the last 5 or 6 days. I'm surprised that more lawmakers have not been in those crowds. I think we've only seen 3 or 4 who have actually gone out and joined the protest. And I think it's the politically smart thing to do. So I see what you're asking. I think it can be both. I think it can be both a photo op and an effective piece of the job of a legislator, because you need to see firsthand, where is the violence, where is the peace, how is law enforcement handling it, what are people saying on the ground? You can't just go off of news reports and iPhone videos.
No, I was throwing you a curve, Tim. You were pretty upset online about the president's photo op on Monday, but Elizabeth Warren's photo op on Tuesday did not elicit any anger from you. So I'm just curious, and tell me if I'm wrong, you did not approve of what I thought was the president's message sending, but you approved or did not criticize Elizabeth Warren's message sending. I think politicians send messages in a variety of ways, and when the media wishes to diminish without laying down, quote, objectivity, they call it a photo op, and when they wish to encourage, they say marched alongside with. I think that's what happened. I think Blue Bubble Media went after the president, and they were wrong on Monday. They dropped their guard. What do you think?
Well, Hugh, so I just fundamentally disagree, and for a couple of reasons. First, Elizabeth Warren going out and walking alongside her husband and her dog in the middle of a peaceful protest had nothing to do with using agents of the state to clear a path for her to do so. I think that's first and foremost. I think the problem that many people, not just people in the Beltway media, but a number of Republican lawmakers on the record, Ben Sasse, Will Hurd, Tim Scott, among others, pointed out was the fact that, and they called it a photo op themselves, by the way, it wasn't just the media, but those Republican lawmakers who voiced displeasure with what the president did, it wasn't just a photo op, it was the fact that it was preceded by and made possible by the use of state force to clear out what was overwhelmingly a peaceful demonstration in Lafayette Park. I think that's the issue that people took.
Did you read the statement of the acting director of the United States Park Police about the violence that in fact was occurring, the projectiles being thrown, and the threats that they had received?
I did.
Do you believe that's a lie?
I don't know that I would call it a lie, Hugh, but I also know that the credibility of anyone affiliated with the administration at this point is severely diminished, and I don't think you could argue.
I don't agree with that in the least. I think half of the country thinks that is a statement by and you're not a biased reporter, so I can say this to you. You're a welcome guest and a friend. I think that is a reflection of Blue Bubble Media that hates Trump so much that they do not understand the Park Police acted independently of him.
But Hugh, the hill that the Trump campaign and the White House wanted to die on yesterday was that there was no tear gas used. There was zero talk of projectiles, of any imminent threat. That crowd, Hugh, we both know a lot of people who are in that crowd covering it. You can watch the videos. Yes, there's a couple of water bottles thrown here and there, but that is not a violent demonstration of any kind. I mean, I don't think that we should try and make more of this than it was. And again, I don't care who the president of the United States is. When we talk about the First Amendment, it's not just freedom of speech. It's not just freedom of the press. It is freedom of assembly.
But of course it is, Tim.
We have a responsibility.
Of course it is. But there was no tear gas used. It's not a hill to die on. It's a fact. By saying a hill to die on, you just bought into the narrative again.
What they use. Hugh, the CDC defines what was used as tear gas.
No, it does not. That is just crazy. I have been in tear gas. I have seen tear gas, and I knew immediately it was a smoke canister, and they used pepper spray. There was no tear gas, Tim. And when you say the media, they want to stand on that hill, you're buying into the narrative. The narrative is Blue Bubble Media. It didn't happen.
Hugh, how many times do we have to go around on Blue Bubble Media before we settle on the fact that A, I live in Michigan, and B, I don't care what anybody else in the Blue Bubble Media says. I can see this for my own eyes, and I can judge it myself. And look, at the same time, if you want to have an issue with me or anybody else on this, where is your issue with Ben Sasse or Tim Scott or Will Hurd or other
They're
Republicans
wrong too. And if
thing?
they're on, I would tell them, you're wrong. It's important to be right. Pepper spray was used. They cleared the demonstrators. There was a threat to the Park Police, but tear gas was not used.
There was no threat. Hugh, what was the threat? There was no threat. No, you can watch 100 videos of that demonstration. There was.
Then you're calling the acting director of the Park Police a liar.
No, I'm not. You're putting words in my mouth.
Well, he said there was a threat. You are saying there is no threat. Neither of us was there. They have the intel. You get the last word.
Did the Department of the Interior, did they or did they not feel political pressure on Inauguration Day to take down a photo showing that Obama's inauguration was bigger than Trump's?
I don't know, but I know that that's got nothing to do with whether or not the Park Police were being assailed and whether or not they had a justified fear and the approach of the curfew. And I know, Tim, you're not part of the blue bubble media. I said you were buying into the narrative of it. There was no tear gas. I'm pointing out you cannot trust reporting from blue bubble media that then gets amplified because they hate Trump. But keep coming back. Tim, Alberta, America. I'll be back tomorrow on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.